Chapter 309. What are you howling for? Can't you let me sleep peacefully? Can't you let me worry less? How could I be so blind to choose you? Liuli's drowsy voice sounded. Qin was so excited that he was about to cry. He didn't realize how good she was in the past and always felt that this woman liked to slack off. Today, Qin knew that his emperor god would grant her every request. Qin quickly muttered in his heart, "My good Liuli, help me. I can't open this cup. Oh my god. Help me. Oh my god. My hair." Unexpectedly, when Liuli fully manifested, she screamed in a voice even more miserable than Qin. Qin looked at Liuli's current appearance in his heart and could roughly understand how she was feeling right now. Liuli, who originally had snow-white skin and elegant long hair, had now turned black all over her body. Only her two big eyes that were wide open could be seen. As for her hair, it was in a completely fluffy state. Her black and beautiful long hair was gone and had turned into a curved hair that shot up into the sky. She looked like a certain black basketball player in the NBA who was famous for his afro hair. No, coupled with the fact that she was naked and only covered by 3 clouds, she should be a movie star in an action movie across the sea. Moreover, she was a black pearl movie star. The reason why Liuli ended up like this was naturally because the grenade exploded in the cup. Then she discovered something and screamed, "Ah! My computer. My lifeblood. I don't want to live anymore. Little lightning. Little lightning, you died so miserably. You've been smashed into powder." The little lightning she mentioned was the top-end machine that I saw last time? Qin was puzzled. Why did this happen? Qin, you have to give me a reasonable explanation. Liuli roared. Qin only needed to recall the scene of the grenade explosion in his mind before Liuli immediately understood. She glared at the void with a murderous gaze. "Goodbye, friend. We are no longer friends. Don't. I didn't want this to happen. I didn't do it on purpose. You can't just watch them die." Now that everything was ready, all that was left was to open the cup. "Why don't you help me out a little? I will never forget your great kindness." Get lost. Do you know how much divine power this empress sacrificed for little lightning? For little lightning, this old lady hasn't worn clothes for a long time. Do you understand the pain in my heart? Now it was all gone. You just blew it up. I don't even have the motivation to live anymore. Who the hell has the time to care about your life or death? Qin face darkened. Once Liuli's otaku nature was awakened, she was simply unreasonable. Can you not be like this? If worst comes to worst, I'll just create another Great Perfection Cup world. If the computer is gone, I can just install another one, right? Forget it, this empress really owes you. To think that the heavenly Holy Grail was one of the 10 great divine weapons of the endless divine world, yet it was actually used by you in such a manner. If you were to find out, you would definitely be filled with so much regret that you would want to slap yourself to death. Forget it, just throw it away. What? I told you to throw the cup over. Remember not to deflect it back. On the other side of the corner, Modelo, who was originally crawling at the front, was called back. The slimmer Zayed swapped to the front and was about to crawl into the gap. At this moment, Qin stretched out his hand and threw the cup at the gap. The cup hit the wall of the sewer and bounced a bit before slipping through the gap and landing in front of Zayed. It rolled around on the ground in front of his chest. *CK. What is this? Zayed was so scared that he peed his pants. He lowered his head and shone his flashlight at the cup. Then he laughed. "Ah, that idiot threw a cup back to scare me. Scared me to death. I thought it was a grenade. Yo, it's a Batman knitted cup cover. Seeing that this brother has the same taste as me, I'll give him a quick one later." Modelo, who was behind him, pushed him. "Idiot. Hurry up. Are you a chatterbox?" At that moment, the idiot Qin that Zayed was referring to had his fingers stuffed into his ears. His mouth was wide open as he leaned against the exit and began counting down in his mind. 3, 2, 1, boom. That was the sound of the explosion that Wu Tong had heard. Zayed stared blankly at the cup in front of him, which he did not take seriously at all. The cup's lid strangely spun on its own. Maybe a tenth of a second? Perhaps as long as a century? Then the lid popped out with a bang and like a cannonball, it hit him hard in the stomach. However, that was just the beginning. Following behind the lid was a scorching stream of air and the shrapnel from the grenade explosion. Those things were the real deal. Earlier my grenade was not a dud? Did the cup absorb all the power of the explosion? Now it was releasing it instead? What the hell is this? Which manufacturer made this cup? Before he was engulfed by the heat and shrapnel, that was the only thought left in Zayed's mind. The heavenly Holy Grail lay quietly on the ground. Like a flamethrower, it sprayed out a torrent of iron and shrapnel toward Zayad and the sewer behind him. However, the cup itself completely defied the laws of physics. It was as though it had grown from the ground and was firmly fixed in place. A terrifying stream of air gushed out from the sewer entrance on Qin Guang's left side. Screams and wails rang out one after another within the narrow passageway. The hot stream of iron and shrapnel streaked across the surface of the water before him. White smoke rose from the surface of the water as the hot stream streaked across the surface of the water, causing it to instantly boil. The cement and bricks that had been blocking the entrance of the sewer were also blown away by the terrifying impact and fell into the water that was half a person deep below. Qin Guang could roughly imagine what kind of tragedy was unfolding within the narrow sewer. However, these people were not worthy of his sympathy. After all, if they had the chance, these people would certainly not mind reaping his life. From the moment he decided to rescue Wu Tong, he was destined to fight to the death with these international criminals. The second burst of destructive power from the grenade did not last for long. It quickly came to a complete stop. Qin Guang slowly sat down in the corner of the wall, leaving only his head above the surface of the water. His hand gripped tightly onto his dagger. The terrifying stench of decay accumulated within the reservoir for 10 years kept drilling into his nose. However, Qin Guang's face turned unprecedentedly cold. Victory or defeat will be decided here. There were 7 of them. Although his revolving star transposition had worked wonders, it was impossible for him to kill all of them. Of the 7 of them, the one who fell at the back would definitely not die. There was no point in continuing to run. Even if only one of them had the ability to fight, they would be able to turn him into a sieve with the guns in their hands. Thus, I will deal with them here. Chapter 310. There was no longer any movement from Azure. It was obvious that turning the transcendent Holy Grail into a bomb had exhausted the last of her divine power. Thinking about it, the divine emperor was quite pitiful. She was originally as beautiful as a fairy, but she had been forcefully blown up into a colored version of a female celebrity with an afro hairstyle. She had painstakingly built up a rich machine, but now it had turned into ashes. It was truly a tragedy. As he was letting his imagination run wild, he suddenly heard a clattering sound coming from the sewers behind him. There was movement. As expected, they were not all dead. Qin Guang took a deep breath and clenched the dagger in his hand. His body shrunk downwards, completely submerging into the water. Like a crab, he gently moved a meter to the left and hid right below the sewer exit. One came, one died. Zayad was dead, killed by a grenade he had personally made. What was worse was that he did not understand what had happened even at the moment of his death. If he knew in the underworld, perhaps he would not be able to rest in peace? That is, if he still had eyes. Third in line, Sergio's luck was pretty good. His thinner physique allowed him to practically hide his entire body behind Zayad and Modelo, who was in front of him. Zayad was riddled with holes from the burst of shrapnel, while Sergio himself was only rolled by the hot current. In fact, it was quite miserable, like a roast duck that was half roasted over the fire in a roast duck restaurant. But at least he managed to keep his life. Modelo, who was in front of Sergio, was a little more unlucky. A shrapnel the size of a fingernail flew in front of him and hit him in the eye. His death was too tragic to look at. The other 3 and the white man Velen were in a slightly better state. Although their clothes were mostly burnt and more than 50% of their bodies were severely burned, they were still lucky to be alive in such a situation. As expected of the internationally renowned bandits. Even though they were in such a terrible situation, after withstanding the first wave of impact, even though their bodies were in so much pain that they wanted to strangle themselves, they still clenched their teeth and did not let out a single scream. The other party was more difficult to deal with than they had imagined. They were also vicious and merciless, and they even had an inexplicable weapon. This group of battle-hardened bandits did not dare to be careless. No one spoke, but everyone, including Sergio, felt a great pressure. If not for the severe burns all over his body, Sergio felt that he would be covered in cold sweat. Before this, Zayad had mentioned that this man's hands were stained with blood. Now, it seemed that he had still underestimated him. The destructive power of such a terrifying weapon in the sewers was simply on the level of destruction. It was unknown how he managed to get it. Before the 2 of them had even truly clashed, he had already been severely injured by him. Even though the people present were international bandits who had killed countless people, they had rarely encountered such a terrifying enemy. However, there was not much time left for them to hesitate. The Chinese soldiers could appear at any time. By that time they would really be trapped. In that case he could only move forward. As long as they could capture that woman and kill that expert, the worst that could happen to them would be that the situation would revert back to how it was before. Wu Tong crawled forward frantically in the sewers. Her fingernails had already been turned over, and her head was also bleeding from the impact, but she didn't feel any pain at all. Qin Guang. You can't die. Wait for me. Wait for me. Even though she didn't know what she could do by rushing over, even though she knew that she might be walking right into a trap. Even though she understood everything, Wu Tong still couldn't change the fact that she wanted to rush to his side. From the moment Qin Guang lured everyone away, Wu Tong completely understood the deepest and truest thoughts in her heart. If she could use her life to save him, she would not hesitate no matter how slim the chances were, even if it was a pointless death. If he really died for her today, she would avenge him even if she had to perish together with him. You want me to turn around and leave like a coward? No way. I'm the police. You're just my college student brother. Dying on the battlefield is the fate of the police. College students should just hide in their ivory towers. Bam. Wu Tong bumped into the wall again. She saw stars and blood flowed down from her head. The blood flowed past her eyelids and dyed her vision red. Wu Tong wiped away the blood in front of her eyes. She huffed and puffed through her nose. She shook her dizzy head and continued to move forward. Qin Guang waited in the water for about 30 seconds. He couldn't breathe, but his experience in the Sea of Moments had made him much better at holding his breath underwater. A mere 30 seconds was nothing to him. Finally, a stone fell from above, splashed in the water, and hit him on the forehead. Qin Guang knew that someone had come out from above. He gripped the dagger tightly in his right hand and slowly raised it. His face was completely parallel to the surface of the water. Qin Guang's face slowly approached the surface of the water like a ghost. The first person to emerge wasn't Shirjiu, but a brown-skinned mixed-blood man. His movements were very slow, because every movement brought great pain to the burned parts of his body. He was already burned beyond recognition, and he could barely open his eyes. He carefully reached out with his hand. His body slid across the exposed steel bars. The rubble that had piled up in the tunnel was all gone. Only the steel bars were left. The steel bars pulled at his burnt and crisp skin. Blood and flesh intertwined, but he didn't feel any pain because his entire body was in extreme pain. Even so, his strong desire to live pushed him forward. His instinct as a fierce bandit made him grip the gun in his hand tightly. There was a small hole in front of him. He heard the sound of the stone falling into the water. Was there a pool in front? The man thought to himself. Then he slowly poked his head out. Immediately after, he felt a cold sensation on his neck. Then his mouth was covered by someone. Qin Guang was facing upwards. He allowed the man's hot blood to splash on his face, but he couldn't bear to blink. The right hand holding the dagger was pulling the man's hair, pulling his head down. His left hand was covering the man's mouth. The man opened his mouth fiercely and tried to bite Qin Guang's hand with his teeth. His body began to struggle like a worm. However, the blood on his neck flowed too quickly. His head quickly sank, and his consciousness gradually fell into darkness. Qin Guang's lightning-fast and ruthless knife found the man's weakest spot in the darkness and completely destroyed his neck. Qin Guang didn't know how deep he had cut, but it was at least 3 inches. The man's struggle became weaker and weaker. Gradually he stopped breathing. Qin Guang dragged the man forward with both hands. The person inside seemed to be impatient and pushed him. Finally, the man's entire body fell. Qin Guang, who had sunk into the water again, took advantage of the situation and gently sent the man to the side. He then returned to the exit. At that moment, Qin Guang was very surprised. He thought that he would be very flustered and nervous since it was his first time killing someone in real life. However, that was not the case. Chapter 311. He discovered that he was terrifyingly calm without any ripples, as if he wasn't cutting someone's throat, but a piece of rag. This kind of thing was done with incomparable proficiency. The blade was precise, the force exerted was perfect, silently taking a person's life, without the slightest bit of sloppiness. When someone else's hot blood splashed on his face, his mind was thinking, is it exactly the same as the taste in the Sea of Moments? Qin Guang secretly laughed bitterly, regardless of whether he admitted it or not. The 20 years he spent on the Enroyal had left a seed of a cold-blooded executioner in his heart. No matter how much he kept reminding himself that it was just a game, that it must be a game if he could revive, it was of no use. This game was too realistic. Day after day of boarding the ship and killing, stabbing the blade into the body of others, watching the blood of others blossom into blooming flowers. No matter how much Qin Guang flaunted himself as a good youth of the new era, he couldn't help but become numb to life. It had been many days since he left the Sea of Moments. When he came out, he gave Bai Nyangzi a big fright, but as time passed, Qin Guang gradually returned to the feeling of reality, allowing the smell of blood in the Sea of Moments to wash away. Until today when he started killing again. Qin Guang would never admit that he was a bloodthirsty person. He only wanted to be a happy youth. The reason why he became like this was probably because from the beginning, he believed that the other party deserved to die, right? I'm not bloodthirsty. I'm just numb. He lied to himself like this. While letting his imagination run wild, he mechanically repeated the same old trick. Another person was killed. Human blood was truly a poisonous thing, constantly smearing it on the face, pouring it into the nose and mouth, it would gradually numb the mind like alcohol. The third person's injuries were slightly lighter than the first two. He almost cried out. Fortunately, Qin Guang dragged him into the water in time. This person flopped in the water for a few seconds, but in the end he still couldn't escape the fate of death. But his abnormal movements greatly alerted the white man Villain, who was at the back. Qin Guang also knew that something was wrong, so he quickly and quietly moved to the side. As soon as he took 2 steps forward, a gun popped out from the entrance of the passageway and fired 3 shots at the position he had just been standing at. Qin Guang broke out in a cold sweat. The bullet closest to him brushed past his ear and almost drilled into his brain. David? God. Sinisa? What's going on up ahead? Answer me. Villain called out the names of the 3 people in front of him, but no one answered him because all 3 of them were dead. After waiting for another 10 seconds, Villain didn't dare to move. He didn't need the other 3 to answer him, because he could already smell the stench of blood in the air. Damn it. Villain cursed in a low voice as he stealthily took a few steps back. He gripped his gun tightly in one hand and grabbed his honey badger with the other. The sound of flowing water could be heard coming from the reservoir up ahead. In the silence of the underground, it was particularly eerie. Villain panted heavily. In his 30-plus years as a semi-professional soldier, he had never been as nervous as he was right now. It was as if he could lose his life in the next second. At this moment he knew that someone was waiting for him up ahead. The 3 of them had died without a sound, without even the slightest bit of struggle. Because of that strange flamethrower, the 7 of them had suffered heavy losses. But even so, it didn't change the fact that the other 3 were battle-hardened top-notch soldiers. And yet, they didn't even let out a scream before they died. Villain ruthlessly stomped on the already dead Zayat. He wanted nothing more than to crush his head. This guy over there is much more powerful than what you said. At this moment, the sound of tremors came from above him. It was the footsteps of the Chinese military and police. Villain knew that he didn't have much time to hesitate. The Chinese military was trying to find a way to get here. Now that he was seriously injured, if he were to fall into the hands of the Chinese military, it would be better to die than to live. But he didn't want to die. So he had no other choice. Even if the darkness ahead was like a ferocious beast, he could only resolutely charge forward. Bastard. I'll fight you to the death. Villain abruptly switched on the tactical flashlight strapped to his waist. With a twist of his waist, he fiercely leapt forward. With the honey badger in his right hand, the muzzle of the honey badger sprayed out a blinding flash as he flew through the air. Tut 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 tut. The dense barrage of bullets carried Villain's strong will to live. It viciously vented out, forming a ring around him. Villain steadily landed on the ground, his left hand tightly gripping the pistol. His blood-red eyes scanned his surroundings as he panted heavily. There was no movement at all. Only the dripping sound of water could be heard from a distance in the huge reservoir. The tactical flashlight illuminated the situation in the reservoir. Villain saw David, Guy, and Sinisa floating on the water with their backs up and faces down. They were in 2 different corners of the reservoir. Dark red blood gradually spread out from the bodies of these 3 people, dyeing the muddy, stinky water a brownish-red color. Villain frantically looked around. Where are they? Come on, bastard. Before he could finish speaking, a long dagger ruthlessly stabbed into his heart from his back. Wayland screamed in despair. He jerked his head back and pulled the trigger again, but it was empty air. The person who stabbed the dagger into his back disappeared again. Qin Guang crouched in the water. For the first time he felt that this filthy, rancid, decade-old wine was so cute. If it wasn't for the fact that this baby had no visibility, he would have taken a picture of that bastard without any explanation. But Qin Guang's luck was finally running out. Villain frantically sprayed his bullets before dying. Finally, a bullet pierced through the water and hit his shoulder. Qin Guang groaned. He spat out a lot of air and gulped down another mouthful of dirty water. But this still wasn't the worst situation. What was worse was that Velan suddenly saw bubbles rising from the water. He aimed the honey badger in that direction. Blood kept gushing out of his mouth, but a smug look appeared on his face. "Ha! Bastard, I've caught you." Qin Guang's hair stood on end. "This is bad." Velan pulled the trigger. Click, click. The honey badger ran out of bullets. "No!" Velan closed his eyes in despair. His consciousness gradually blurred and he slowly knelt down. Dead. Qin Guang, who had just escaped death, stood up from the water, panting heavily. There was a bloody hole in his shoulder. The bullet had pierced through and tore out a large piece of flesh. Fortunately, it missed by a centimeter and didn't injure his bones. Qin Guang leaned against the wall of the reservoir. He couldn't hide the smugness on his face. "I'm finally a man with a bullet hole in my body. I survived." Just then, a beam of light came from the sewer exit. A man whose face was beyond recognition was lying on the ground, looking like a devil. His face was covered in horrifying red pieces of flesh. He narrowed his eyes and looked at him coldly. He grinned, revealing a mouthful of white teeth. He held a flashlight in his left hand and a gun in his right. He said in standard Mandarin, "I've caught you." Among the survivors, Nineth suffered the heaviest injuries. From the beginning he chose to lie on the ground and feign death. It was only when Velan lured Qin Guang out that he finally poked his head out. Chapter 312. Qin Guang swore that this would be the last time in his life that he would show off in poverty. Of course it wasn't his fault. If he hadn't been shot in the shoulder by Welan and accidentally spat out the air he had been holding in, he definitely wouldn't have floated up to the surface so easily. It was too late to say anything now. Large beads of cold sweat instantly covered his back. Qin Guang regretted it so much that his intestines turned green. "I should have thought of this earlier." According to the usual style of television dramas and movies, even the villains wouldn't die so quickly. There would definitely be a villain who would suddenly jump out just as the male lead was about to succeed, forcefully turning the perfect ending into a bitter one. Damn it. Am I getting my comeuppance? In the past, I would always complain about how other people acted in movies, saying that their directing skills were bad, that they lacked creativity, and that they didn't have any brains. But I never thought that the same thing would happen to me. Faced with this situation, it was clear that there was no hope for Lioli. Qin Guang's mind raced as he racked his brains for a way to survive. No matter how he thought about it, he was helpless. At such a close distance, and with the other party being a well-trained terrorist, it was impossible for him to miss. "Bro, you guys want to live, but I don't want to die either. How about this? I'll tell you how to leave this place and we'll pretend that we never met. How about that? We're all Chinese and we don't fight each other. From the beginning to the end, it was just an accident. This is a misunderstanding." He wanted to see if he could stall for time. Logically speaking, this bro had just been barbecued inside, so he definitely wasn't in a good state. Who knew, he might be able to make him fall asleep just by chatting with him. But Shirjiu immediately slapped Qin Guang in the face. He forced himself up, but his right hand that was holding onto the gun was extremely stable the entire time. The muzzle was pointed straight at Qin Guang's head. "Do you think I'll believe you?" Qin Guang secretly rolled his eyes. "If you really didn't believe me, you should have just shot me, alright?" There was no hope of making him fall asleep from chatting, but it seemed like he could stall for time. Then Shirjiu stood up straight in front of him and went into the water. He narrowed his eyes and approached Qin Guang step by step. "I know what you're thinking. Are you trying to stall for time?" Bang. He fired. The bullet accurately hit Qin Guang's other shoulder. Like before, it didn't hurt his bones but passed through the muscles of his shoulder. A tearing pain came. Qin Guang fell backward and hit his head on the wall of the reservoir. Shirjiu walked closer until the cold muzzle of the gun was pressed against Qin Guang's forehead. "I admit that you're very powerful, but you're not powerful enough. Lead the way. As long as I can survive, I'll let you go. I mean what I say." Qin Guang trembled in pain. "Big brother, can we talk nicely and not shoot? You're an expert, so I have to show you enough respect. If I don't, I won't feel safe. You killed all my companions. I can't just sit back and do nothing, can I?" Shirjiu moved his face closer to Qin Guang. "Do you see my face? It's all thanks to you that I've become like this. If you don't want to die, you'd better cooperate." F***ck. His face was horrible. All the flesh was rotten and his eyelids were completely swollen. He looked like a mutant that had failed to shed its skin. Qin Guang gritted his teeth and stood up. "Bro, don't worry about your appearance. As long as you have a beautiful heart, you'll find true love sooner or later. I know a very skilled Korean doctor. He can make you as handsome as Do Min Jun. Cut the crap. Lead the way." I'll blow your head off if you say another word. Sergio suddenly roared. Letting out a sigh in his heart, Qin Guang obediently walked towards the other exit. Why are people so hot-tempered now? Brother, don't accidentally fire. I'm not bragging, but my father is a lieutenant general, and he's about to be promoted to general. As long as you hold me hostage, no one will dare to fire. Lieutenant general? Sergio believed his nonsense. Of course. Our Qin family is a military family. My brother's code name is Dragon Fong. He's the top special forces soldier in Wuxia. It's not difficult for him to wipe out a small country with 300 Dragon Fong soldiers under his command. What I have is just a superficial knowledge that my brother taught me. In a few years, when my father enters the command center, he'll play an important role in the Wuxia military for the next few decades. Besides my biological brother, I still have my cousin, uncles and uncles. No matter what you want to do, as long as you have me as a hostage, I can guarantee that everything you want will come true. The policewoman you caught just now is actually my fiancée. Her father's name is Wu Shan. Otherwise, why would I get involved in this matter? Wu Shan. Sergio had done a lot of homework. He immediately understood when Qin Guang mentioned the name Wu Shan. That's right. That's why the military gave you the helicopter without a second thought. There's a lot going on in this matter. As Qin Guang spoke, he gently lay down on the manhole in front of him. He had no choice. Both of his hands had been shot in the shoulders, so he could not exert any strength at all. Interesting. Looks like the other 6 people's deaths were worth it. Sergio's terrible mood instantly turned for the better. Actually, you're really strong. It's a pity that you met me. That's right. Unlucky. Otherwise, I think we could be friends. I think you and I are the same type of person. Bang. Sergio, who was standing behind Qin Guang, felt his head explode. At the previous exit, Wu Tong slowly lowered Zayad's sniper rifle. Qin Guang was so frightened by the gunshot that he peed his pants. He subconsciously shrank back, thinking that the guy behind him was tired of his talkative nature and fired again. He waited for a long time, but there was no movement. When he turned around, he saw Sergio's headless corpse. Not far away, a soft call came from another hole. Qin Guang? Old Master Guang's entire body went limp. Oh my God, I survived. Thank God. The saying that the villain dies because he talks too much is indeed stronger than the saying that the hero must die. I won the bet. Sis, you weren't so obedient to abandon me and run. You're too considerate. Although, deep down, I didn't want you to come back and drag me down. But if you saved my life instead, that would be a different story. Thank God you're back. I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm still alive. He forced himself to straighten his body and leaned against the entrance of the sewer. He subconsciously wanted to give Wu Tong a thumbs up, but he found that he could not lift his hand. Wu Tong was in a half-crouch. The sniper rifle in her hand was so hot that it looked as though it had just been fished out of boiling water. However, her hand was unprecedentedly steady. She continued to aim at Sergio, as though she was worried that this man who could not be any more dead would still be able to rise up and give Qin Guang a fatal blow. Then she finally heard Qin Guang speak. She saw him sit up bit by bit. His previously stopped breathing resumed and his frozen heart came to life once more. She tossed the sniper rifle away and jumped into the water. Using her hands and feet, she threw herself in front of Qin Guang, hugged him and cried. It's great that you're fine. Really? I knew I should have come back. I didn't become a deserter, Big sis, I was originally fine. If you hadn't let go, I feel like I'm really going to become disabled. Chapter 313. Wu Tong was so frightened that she quickly let go and snatched the flashlight from Sergio's hand. Then she kicked the corpse to the ground and shone it on Qin Guang's body. She burst into tears again. Your hand. Oh my God. If you become a cripple, can you not say such depressing things? As a veteran, how can I live without my hands? I can definitely heal it. Don't curse me. I was only shot in the shoulder. I've seen people survive after being shot in the neck. Wu Tong wiped away the tears and blood on her face. She looked confused. Veteran? Just leave. We're not from the same world. We don't have anything in common. Qin Guang spent about 3 minutes comforting Wu Tong. It was a pain in the ass. He was the one who was shot and she was the uniformed police officer. In the end, he, the victim, had to comfort the police officer. No, absolutely not. You were the one who killed these criminals. I was just a burden. How can I take the credit? Qin Guang wanted to let Wu Tong take the credit for killing these international criminals, but he did not expect her to reject him. He put on a straight face. Sis, can you not make things difficult for me? It's hard enough to work so hard to save a person, okay? I'm just a student, a cute college student. Now, you want me to jump out and tell others that this cute college student just killed 6 vicious bandits with his own hands? Cut their throats? What will others think of me? Will I still be able to live a peaceful life in the future? But Wu Tong felt extremely ashamed. She had been feeling terrible since the beginning of the day. Now that she was being asked to falsely claim credit, she could not get over it. An ordinary person killed 6 people for no reason. Maybe this person will be blamed on me in the end. Even if these people were criminals with blood on their hands, I won't be able to explain it. You're a police officer. You fought with the criminals and killed them. That's normal, okay? But no one will believe me. Wu Tong was still persistent. It doesn't matter if other people believe it or not. In any case, you and I are both dead set on it. There's no third person who can jump out and say that you're bragging. Come on, if you really feel guilty and apologetic and want to express your gratitude to the old man for saving your life. Qin Guang pondered. Wu Tong's breathing stagnated. She thought to herself, if he wants me to repay him with my body, even though I'm not mentally prepared yet, and even though I'm 5 years older than him, I'll still agree. She couldn't find another man like him in this world who was willing to die for her. As long as I become a family with him, his contributions will also be my contributions. If I get promoted because of this, it will also be his achievement. We will have a family. I can marry him and have children. I can raise him. Qin Guang continued, then you can. Wu Tong's breathing quickened. You can give me money. What? Wu Tong was dumbfounded. At the same time, Qin Guang also felt embarrassed. He's used to being poor and had forgotten that he's a tycoon with 180 million yen. Hence, he subconsciously said such embarrassing words. It's just a joke. Anyway, don't argue with me. It's decided. How do you want to repay me? We can talk about it in private later. Later, you must remember to keep a straight face and insist that you're pretending to be weak. You purposely fell into the enemy's hands and then counterattacked and killed all the criminals in one fell swoop. As Qin Guang spoke, he forced himself to stand up straight and walk toward the sewer entrance. What are you doing? Wu Tong followed him. Helping me find something. My cup. Cup? A fiberglass cup. Wu Tong was anxious. Look at the time. Why do you still care about the cup? Qin Guang rolled his eyes. You don't understand. I can't explain it to you. This cup is my favorite. About 2 minutes later, Wu Tong finally understood what Qin Guang meant. She put the heavenly holy grail into the sports bag in front of his chest with a strange expression. She couldn't bear to look at the glossy and colorful picture on the cup. She didn't expect Qin Guang's favorite cup to be this kind of cup. But she didn't know what happened. The most important part of the beautiful picture was foggy. She thought it was dust, but she couldn't wipe it off even after rubbing it with her fingers several times. Even if you like to look at these, you should at least look at domestic ones. What's so good about black ones? And the hairstyle is so terrible. It's even an afro. It's so ugly. Wu Tong pulled the zipper of her bag and rolled her eyes at him. Qin Guang thought to himself, thank God Lioli had disconnected at this time. Otherwise, if she heard Wu Tong's complaints, would she give her a super hypnosis? Next time he should choose a fireproof cover. It was a little embarrassing for it to be burned. There was another thing that Qin Guang was particularly concerned about. Up until now, the heavenly holy grail hadn't sent him a notification telling him that the punishment realm had ended. It didn't seem to be over yet. Also, why did his chest feel so hot? That didn't make sense. There clearly wasn't any heat at the start. Why did it suddenly heat up? Does it mean that my heavenly holy grail has a self-heating function? All of a sudden, it seemed to have become so lofty. It could swallow grenades and eat bombs when entering, and it could heat up its own coffee when retreating. Little did Qin Guang know that the moment he pulled up the zipper of his bag, the heavenly holy grail flashed 7 times in a row. It was the same as when he raced over 100 meters and killed a pigeon. The two of them curled up in the sewers and waited for about 10 minutes. Finally, the cover above their heads was lifted, and the Special Forces soldiers entered one by one. They saw Qin Guang and Wu Tong sitting together. In an instant, several black muzzles were aimed at Qin Guang. Without any hesitation, Wu Tong stood before Qin Guang and yelled, "What are you guys doing? The criminals have all been killed. This is the good citizen Qin Guang who acted bravely for a just cause. With his help, I killed the 7 criminals one after another. Qin Guang is seriously injured. Call an ambulance." When she said this, Wu Tong's face was a little red. However, the two of them had already agreed on it. Even though she knew that everyone would think that she was lying, she gritted her teeth and held on. What could be used to describe the feelings of these special forces? Simply put, it was 3 words: King dog. Normal people wouldn't believe a single word that Wu Tong said. Your good citizen is really everywhere. Did he come to the underground to act bravely for a just cause? Even if he was lying through his teeth, he still had to follow the basic rules. Later on, Wu Shan came, and his colleagues from the Wenqing branch also came one after another. Wu Shan knew Qin Guang, and so did the other people from the Wenqing branch. Qin Guang took out his wet student ID to prove his identity. No matter what, Wu Tong insisted that the 7 criminals died in her hands, and that Qin Guang had mysteriously appeared here. Chapter 314. Of course, Wu Shan knew that there was something fishy going on. However, since his daughter insisted on it, he would not ask further. He knew that it was useless to ask. At that moment, Wu Shan was immersed in self-blame. Although Wu Tong had miraculously survived, Wu Shan could not forgive himself for making such a decision. Even though he knew that even if he was given another chance to choose, he probably wouldn't change his mind. The special police wanted to take Qin Guang away for questioning, but Wu Shan came to the rescue. Let's leave it at that. There's nothing to investigate. Since he's injured, let him go to the hospital first. If you have any other questions, you can ask Wu Tong and me. Wu Tong, who had escaped death, was furious. Although she felt embarrassed that she had falsely claimed the merit, when the truth was revealed, Qin Guang had almost been taken away to be interrogated even though he had not done anything. If others knew that it was Qin Guang who had killed 6 people, things would be even more troublesome. She held onto Qin Guang's hand tightly and protected his stretcher. She yelled at the special police captain, Captain Gu, "What are you guys thinking? So many people know him. He was shot twice to cover me when I killed the criminals, and now you're telling me that you want to take him away? You won't even let him go to the hospital?" Captain Gu was also extremely embarrassed. However, since the father and daughter of the Wu family had made a decision, he could not continue to pester them. Thus he left dejectedly. Of course, he also had other things to do. He had won a great victory in the pursuit of Shurjio's group, but the other group had escaped. Now, the special police system of the entire Wujing city was alarmed. Captain Gu and his team were still busy today. They would probably have to join in the overnight pursuit. As for the military, they had left as soon as the incident was over. The police would have to deal with the aftermath. Fortunately, the group of people who had bumped into Qin Guang in town did not come over. Otherwise, the fat police officer might have become one of the only 3 people who knew about the incident. However, he would find out about it later. By then he would probably only be a legend in his heart. Perhaps he would think that he was worthy of being the man that Captain Wu had taken a liking to. It was fine when he did not make a move, but when he did, it was like a clap of thunder. He first inquired about the situation, then silently rushed over and rescued the Wu team from a situation of certain death without a single injury. Relying on the fact that they were acquaintances and Wu Tong's superior, Chief Ding moved closer to Qin Guang. "Little Qin, how did a good citizen like you end up there?" Qin Guang knew that the bureau chief was just being curious. Of course, it could also be someone else's order. He rolled his eyes and said, "I don't know either. I have the habit of sleepwalking since I was young. When I sleepwalk, I like to crawl into holes. When I wake up, I'm already lying there with 2 bloody holes on my shoulder. How unlucky." Qin Guang's ability to act shamelessly was much higher than Wu Tong's. With a bitter face, Chief Ding could not do anything to him. "When we arrive at the hospital, you can rest first. I'll go to the municipal bureau for a meeting." Wu Tong sat next to Qin Guang's stretcher in the ambulance. 2 nurses were tying gauze on the head of the anti-terrorist hero. She had also hit her head hard. Qin Guang shook his head. "Meeting my ass. You can't go anywhere tonight. You have to be wherever I am. Give me your hand." The punishment realm had not ended yet. Qin Guang was determined to endure it. Although his shoulder was really weak, he could still move his fingers. Wu Tong's face turned red. She did not understand what he meant, but she obediently put her hand in his palm. Qin Guang squeezed her hand tightly. "I'm injured now. I'm very fragile and may have a mental breakdown at any time. If you have a conscience, let me hold your hand." "Okay." Wu Tong's face turned even redder. The nurses on both sides covered their mouths and snickered. They had never seen a guy who was still in the mood to flirt with a girl when he was so injured. Sensing the sky-piercing Holy Grail's power spreading to Wu Tong and enveloping her, Qin Guang's heart was finally relieved and he glanced at the 2 nurses. "Oh my God, what a pretty little girl. Did she just graduate from the nursing school? Excuse me, Officer Wu and I are just siblings. If it's possible, Can we exchange phone numbers? Although I've been shot twice, I'm actually a 5-merit student of Gokyo University. I'm an outstanding student this year and the winner of the annual scholarship. Shut up. You're seriously injured. Wu Tong and the 2 nurses rebuked him together. I won't leave the front line if I'm lightly injured, and I'll chase after girls day and night. Qin Guang continued to insist. Seeing that the 3 of them were about to lose their temper, Qin Guang immediately changed his words. By the way, which hospital is the ambulance going to? Wujing City Hospital. What's wrong? The beautiful nurse was finally willing to answer. Qin Guang straightened his body on the stretcher. No, we can't go to Wujing City Hospital. The 3 of them hurriedly pressed him down again. You'd better behave yourself. It's not about whether I'm being honest or not. My parents are both in Wujing City Hospital. My mother just had her surgery a few days ago. If she knew that I was shot, how scared would she be? Qin Guang was anxious. Under his insistence, they finally switched to another hospital. On the other side, World 8 was looking at the special communication device in his hand with a grave expression. He had been waiting for a long time with his finger pressed on it, but there was no movement. Finally, he threw the communication device away and said coldly, Sergio is dead. They should all be dead. Are we going to avenge them? World 8 shook his head. It's more important to complete the mission first. I don't care about other people's deaths. We, the Shattered World, will handle Sergio's death ourselves. There's no need for you to worry. The group entered the forest and disappeared into the darkness. There wasn't any shrapnel in Qin Guang's shoulder, since the bullet had pierced through it. The so-called treatment was just some disinfection and bandaging, along with some medicine to increase the vitality of his cells and also some medication. Qin Guang's luck was off the charts. He didn't hurt his bones or tendons. It was simply a blessing from the gods. On the other hand, Wu Tong's injuries were much simpler. Initially, she didn't have to be hospitalized, but Qin Guang didn't allow her to leave. Hence, the 2 of them were allocated 2 beds in the hospital and laid down side by side, holding hands. When the organization asks me how I did it, how do you think I should explain it? Wu Tong asked awkwardly as she lay on the bed. Qin Guang rolled his eyes. Police? Don't you know how to talk nonsense? Just now, Chief Ding asked me why I was there. I told him that I sleepwalked there, but he couldn't even fart. You should learn from me. Have you seen the anti-Japanese drama? A delicate young girl was kissed by the Japanese, and then she exploded and went on a rampage. Just follow this train of thought and say that you saw a handsome young man like me getting shot. You also know me, so you were stimulated and your little universe exploded. Then, your mind went blank, and when you came back to your senses, the bandits were already dead. Wu Tong was defeated by his shamelessness. Will others believe such an explanation? So what if they don't believe me? Anyway, there's no evidence and there's no recording at the scene. Everyone else is dead, so we can say whatever we want. Qin Guang, on the other hand, saw through everything. Wu Tong nodded. That's true. Chapter 315. Then she stopped talking. It was not that she had nothing to say, but Qin Guang gradually became sleepy after taking the drug, so he didn't have any energy to speak. Wu Tong couldn't bear to disturb his rest, so she kept her words to herself. She tightened her grip on his palm. His palm was really warm. In fact, Qin Guang was seriously injured. Being shot in the shoulder was no joke. If it was an ordinary person, he would have screamed and died in pain. Thanks to those days in the Sea of Moment where he lost his arms and legs, Qin Guang's nerves were much stronger than those of ordinary people. When he was almost lying down, Qin Guang asked Wu Tong to help him call Sun Xiaoxuan. He said that after he left, he met a friend he met when he was racing in Xiangjiang, so he took him out for a drink and wouldn't come back tonight. Although this kind of lie was not credible, Qin Guang sounded energetic, so Sun Xiaoxuan, Lin Jingwei, and others couldn't do anything to him. During the treatment, Qin Guang pretended to be like Guan Gong and didn't need anesthesia. But the hospital decisively gave him 2 injections of strong analgesics on both sides of his shoulders, so he fell asleep completely. But before he fell asleep, he stared into Wu Tong's eyes. No matter what. Absolutely. Don't let go of my hand. Don't let go even if the sky falls. Remember this well. Damn it, I told you 10,000 times not to use analgesics, but you lied to me that it was just antibiotics. What a fraud. The punishment world had not ended yet, and he might have to wait until 12 o'clock. If she let go and he failed, it would be a big problem. Wu Tong saw his red eyes and looked like he was going to eat someone, so she quickly comforted him. No, no. Absolutely not. You can rest assured and sleep. Swear. Otherwise, I won't sleep even if there are needles on my eyelids. I swear, I swear. Absolutely not. The next second, Qin Guang fell asleep. The anesthesia was really unreasonable. Wu Tong looked at him in a daze. Unconsciously, her eyes and face turned red. Wu Tong refused to participate in the meeting. As the leader of the system and Wu Tong's father, although he was worried, he still let it go. No matter whether others believed it or not, no matter what others thought, as Qin Guang said, as long as he insisted, Wu Tong would be a great hero. If it were any other police officer, such a big mistake would basically announce the end of their political career. However, Wu Tong had always been different from others. As long as Wu Shan was willing, he could turn black into white in Sichuan province. What's more, the final result was that all 7 bandits had died in the sewer of the No. 3 steel works, while the other group of bandits had escaped unscathed. Comparing the two, it was clear who was superior. In this peaceful era, Wu Tong's contribution today could be considered as the first time Granny Lu entered the Grand View Garden. In the Wujing City Bureau's conference room, Wu Shan slammed the table. Then, regarding Comrade Wu Tong's commendation, it's decided for the time being. At the same time, considering that the other group of robbers is currently on the run, we should focus on dealing with them. For the time being, we won't hold any commendation ceremony. These internationally notorious terrorists must be wiped out with all their might. Xiao Shui, the military sent you here to cooperate with us, so I feel at ease. Please be sure to give the terrorists a fatal blow and show the elegance of the Chinese soldiers. Don't let any of them escape. The young soldier called Xiao Shui grinned. Director Wu, don't worry. No matter how many of them come, they will all die. After saying that, the young soldier straightened his military cap, got up and quickly walked outside. In a few steps, he had disappeared without a trace. The other participants also gradually left, but Wu Shan wasn't in a hurry to leave. Someone next to him pulled him and said, Shui Lin has become more and more heroic in the past 2 years. He's quite like his father. Wu Shan smiled. It's just that he didn't think of a good name. A man with a woman's name is almost called an executioner in the international community, but he's still a white-faced young man. Hey old Wu, you don't understand. They aren't ordinary soldiers. What they want is this kind of deceptive appearance. If they pretend to be a white-collar worker, who can defend against them? That's true. Wu Shan nodded. On the other side, Bureau Chief Ding of Wenxing Branch grinned and rushed forward excitedly. Shui Lin is powerful, but like father, like daughter. Comrade Wu Tong has always dared to fight. This time, I didn't expect that she would deliberately pretend to be weak and go deep into the tiger's den. She could actually catch all 7 bandits in one fell swoop by herself. Wu Shan paused and his expression stiffened. He looked at Bureau Chief Ding for a long time, and after a long while he finally said, I got someone to check the car in your branch. Didn't you check it? Bureau Chief Ding looked confused. He really didn't have time to check the broken car. What's wrong? Another city bureau leader couldn't stand it anymore and came up to Bureau Chief Ding. Didn't your branch allocate funds to buy a new car last year? When Wu Tong drove your car in, the brakes completely fell off, and the steering wheel fell on the seat. What's the meaning of this? How do you think Wu Tong drove in? Bureau Chief Ding was dumbfounded. After the meeting, Wu Shan came to the hospital again. He wanted to ask Wu Tong to go out and explain some things, but Wu Tong refused to get up from the ward. She explained to Wu Shan that she was injured and couldn't get up. She didn't care about the credit and just wanted to lie here as an injured person. Of course, Wu Shan didn't believe her. Of course, he didn't feel good about it either. He pulled a chair over and sat beside her. He grabbed Wu Tong's other hand and held it in for a long time. Wu Tong, I'm sorry. Wu Tong didn't understand why he would suddenly say sorry to her, and she pulled her hand back. Why are you saying sorry for nothing? It's nothing. I suddenly thought of something in the past. Wu Shan was silent. There's a bomb in the helicopter, right? Wu Tong suddenly asked. Wu Shan was stunned, and he nodded with a bitter smile. Yes. From a police officer's perspective, I completely understand you, and I agree with your decision. If I had a bomb in my arms, I would also be willing to die with them, Wu Tong said. Wu Shan's heart relaxed a little. From a daughter's perspective, I don't really understand, but I understand. Wu Shan's heart relaxed again. But from, don't say it anymore. Don't say it anymore. I'm sorry, I really don't have a choice. Wu Shan suddenly covered his face and choked with sobs. He knew what Wu Tong wanted to say. Thankfully, Wu Tong and Qin Guang were also in the intensive care ward, and there weren't any other patients. At this moment, the doctors and nurses weren't around. If others saw Chief Wu crying while holding onto his blanket, who knows if they would be frightened to death. After a long time, Wu Shan and Wu Tong finally calmed down. Wu Tong sighed. Dad, I'm not a young child anymore. There are some things that I might never be able to overcome emotionally, but now that I've become such a person, I understand rationally. It's good that you understand. I also understand that the helicopter came so fast because someone didn't want you to arrive in time, right? This? Alright, what's going on? I know you. I've checked the wounds on those 7 people. It's not your doing. Don't lie to me. Wu Tong thought for a while and looked outside the door to make sure there were no eavesdroppers. It was Qin Guang who saved me and he killed them. Chapter 316. How is that possible? I've investigated him. He's just an ordinary university student. But he's definitely skilled in killing people. You can't find anyone more accurate and ruthless than him in the army. You didn't look carefully at the wounds on those people's necks. Their throats were cut in an instant. The strength and angle were perfect. It's unbelievable. Wu Shan was shocked to hear Wu Tong admit that it was Qin Guang who did it. Wu Tong shushed him. Keep your voice down. Don't wake him up. He doesn't want me to tell anyone. My mind is in a mess. I don't know where he learned his skills. But that's not important. What's important is that he saved my life, right? Wu Shan grunted. That's right. I owe this kid a lot. If it wasn't for him, all right. If he doesn't want to say it himself, then you can keep it to yourself. Just remember that he saved your daughter's life. I can guarantee with my life that he's not an enemy spy. You haven't ascended to the throne yet. It's not worth it for others to invest in you. Don't think of me with your politician's mindset. I'm sleepy. I want to sleep. You can go back. Wu Tong asked him to leave. As Wu Shan acknowledged, he took another glance at Qin Guang. When he saw Qin Guang holding hands with Wu Tong, his eyes instantly narrowed. However, he ultimately held it in and said, Why don't you take a shower first? Don't you want to smell your body when you sleep like this? Don't you feel uncomfortable? He wasn't wrong. Even now, Wu Tong and Qin Guang were covered in the stench of the sewers. They only disinfected their wounds and applied bandages. How could they have the time to care about other parts of their bodies? Wu Tong blushed. Go away. It's none of your business. Wu Shan's mouth twitched. He turned around and left. Wu Tong had a million reasons to be willful in front of him. Wu Shan thought that his daughter had grown up. She had the right to make her own decisions. If he wasn't Wu Shan with so many scars in his past, but someone else with the same status as him, his daughter wouldn't have the right to enjoy freedom. Political marriages are the final destination for the next generation of people like me, but this kind of thing will never happen to my daughter. She has already lost too much in her previous life. In the future, I will give her all the freedom she wants. As a father, the most I can do is to give her some ideas and suggestions at some crucial moments. That's all. Of course, Wu Shan also knew that with Wu Tong's character, if she really made a decision, then no one would be able to change it. When Wu Shan turned around and left, Wu Tong began to feel troubled. She tried to pull her hand out of Qin Guang's grasp, but the guy was still holding onto it tightly even though he was asleep. She recalled her vow from before. She had to keep her word and never pull her hand away. It was one thing for her to stink, but as a police officer, she had encountered much worse situations. When she was chasing pigs for the public, Wu Tong had even fallen into a smelly sewer. It was embarrassing, but the police officers in the township police station had encountered many strange situations. But Qin Guang was seriously injured. He couldn't possibly continue to stink, right? The rotten water in the sewer was not only smelly, but God knows how many germs there were in it. So she couldn't just ignore it. What should she do now? Wu Tong started to worry. Should she let the nurse wipe his body? Although this seemed to be the most reasonable solution, she still didn't feel good about it. Damn it. I'm going all out today. Wu Tong clenched her teeth and pressed the beeper to call the nurse over. She asked the nurse to bring 2 warm wet towels and a change of quilt. Then she got up and half knelt beside the bed ready to get to work. Her left hand was tightly held by Qin Guang, and only her right hand could move. Looking at this guy sleeping like a dead pig, Wu Tong clenched her teeth again and started to pull up Qin Guang's clothes with one hand. There was a long wound on his stomach. It had been treated before and was wrapped in bandages. His upper body had been changed into a patient's gown, so only the pants on his lower body were more difficult to deal with. Wu Tong spent a total of 15 minutes to strip this guy down to a pair of CK underwear. She had also wiped almost all the parts of his body that could be wiped. Putting aside how dirty and smelly his jacket was, The underwear was between his legs, which was a good place to hide dirt. Other parts of his body only had dry black marks, but his armpit and inner thighs were black. Now that the armpit had been cleaned, only a small triangular area was left. Looking at this guy's bulging crotch, Wu Tong suddenly felt very embarrassed. She held the cold wet towel in her hand, which was submerged in water, and didn't know what to do. There was only one last step left, but she couldn't take it. She reached out her hand a few times with trembling hands, but she retreated in panic as if she had been electrocuted. She looked up at the clock in the ward. Unknowingly, it was almost 12 o'clock in the morning. Wu Tong kept taking deep breaths. She thought to herself, Wu Tong, he even risked his life for you. Now that he is injured like this, how can you let him sleep the whole night dirty? Men are the same as women. If they don't pay attention to their personal hygiene, they will definitely get sick, right? If you choose to ignore it because of this pointless shyness and ignore it, how can you be worthy of the 2 shots he took for you? How can you be worthy of the danger he put himself in for you? Although he did have some skills that ordinary people couldn't compare to, he was really on the verge of death when he fought with the other party and was pointed at the back of his head by Sergio. So I can't retreat. Anyway, he won't know anything after he injected me with anesthetics, right? Wu Tong bravely reached out her hand. Her fingertips hung on Qin Guang's CK underwear and began to pull it down. The most powerful persuader in the world was often oneself. What could be easier than convincing oneself? Finally, Qin Guang's underwear was pulled down. Wu Tong closed her eyes tightly and pulled her fingers down bit by bit. However, her left hand was firmly held by Qin Guang. This guy seemed to be a little too tall, so the underwear that her right hand was pulling seemed to never end. She opened her arms wider and wider, and Wu Tong's body, which was half kneeling on the bed, was also getting lower and lower. Why haven't you taken it off? Should I open my eyes and look? Is it meaningless for me to close my eyes like this now? Anyway, I have to open my eyes when I wipe him later, right? So Wu Tong opened her almond-shaped eyes. Strange, shouldn't I be looking at my right side? Why is my neck not listening to me and twisting to the left? Help. My head is out of control. Her head drooped weakly on Qin Guang's calf, and she stared straight ahead with her eyes wide open. There seemed to be a black hole devouring her will. At this moment, the clock on the wall made a ticking sound, and the hour hand pointed to 12 o'clock. Chapter 317. Just at the moment when the hour hand was aligned. World of punishment completed. Sister is saved. Mission completed, perfect. The voice of the heavenly Holy Grail suddenly appeared in the depths of Qin Guang's mind, waking him up from his deep sleep. He opened his eyes abruptly, and his consciousness awakened like a tide. The summer breeze blew, and a chill quickly spread throughout his body from the tip of his toes to his forehead. He forced himself to lift his head and look down. He saw his clean and smooth body. He looked past the thick bandage wrapped around his abdomen and continued downwards. What he saw was Wu Tong's completely lost eyes, and her face was as red as the rising sun. She seemed to be completely lost in thought as she stared at the spot between his legs. What the hell? She wanted to molest me while I was asleep? I didn't expect you to be like this, Sister Wu Tong. The wind in the ward blew again, and the crotch area was chilly. Then, under the gaze of both of them, a pillar propping up the sky. Wu Tong was getting closer and closer to him, and she was completely cross-eyed. From Qin Guang's point of view, he didn't want to look anymore, it was too dirty. Anyway, he could roughly imagine a little cat hiding its head behind a flashlight and playing hide-and-seek with someone. Wu Tong got closer and closer and stared at him. She had always felt that this kid was especially good at fighting and was also very strong. She really didn't expect him to be so strong here. Wait, how did he become like this while he was sleeping? What kind of weird things was this guy dreaming about? What a little hooligan. Her face was so red that she was like a patient with a high fever. She tried to pull her left hand, wanting to use her fingers to tease this little guy, but she couldn't pull it, so she gave up. Then Wu Tong subconsciously looked up, and met Qin Guang's eyes through the flashlight. Countless lightning flashed between their eyes, and 10,000 emotions ran through every corner of their hearts in an instant. The air stagnated at this moment and time seemed to freeze. Wu Tong's mouth opened wider and wider, and she wanted to scream. Ah! Halfway through her scream, she slapped her right hand hard on her mouth. Thank God, at such a critical moment, she didn't even know which kind-hearted person had given her a handkerchief. With a handkerchief covering her mouth, she didn't have to scream. Wait, why does this handkerchief have a sour smell? These are his underwear. It turned out that she did not notice that Qin Guang's underwear had finally been ripped off his feet. Wu Tong was so frightened that she suddenly raised her hand. Under their gazes, Qin Guang's beloved CK underwear drew a perfect arc in the air and flew out of the window. Qin Guang raised his hand in despair and made a grasping motion in the air. No. My underwear cost $700. No. The scream was heart-wrenching and heart-wrenching. On the other side, Wu Tong instantly regretted after throwing Qin Guang's underwear away. She got up and pounced forward to grab it, but it was impossible. Instead, she tripped over Qin Guang, who was lying on the hospital bed. Her whole body fell forward, and fortunately, her hands were holding onto something to prevent her from falling to the other side of the hospital bed. Ouch! Qin Guang dragged out the last syllable and let out a suppressed and shrill scream. Wu Tong turned her head and saw that her hand was pressed between this guy's legs. She was completely dumbfounded. She grabbed it and it was so hot. Ouch. Let go of me. It's broken. It's going to break. Qin Guang shouted. Wu Tong hurriedly let go of her hand. The temperature of her face could no longer be described as hot, it was almost on fire. At this moment there was a clicking sound coming from the ward door. Apparently, the two's movements had attracted the attention of the nurses who were patrolling outside. In fact, the two's ward had always been the focus of attention. There was no need for Wu Shan to call out to them. This ward was not a place that ordinary people could enter. As expected of Wu Tong. At this moment, when she was on the verge of breaking down, no, she had already broken down. When she heard the sound of the ward door being unlocked, she immediately reacted and pulled the blanket over Qin Guang. The nurse poked her head in from the door. Is something wrong? Wu Tong and Qin Guang shook their heads in unison. It's nothing. The nurse looked at the two of them suspiciously. She saw that the man's face was pale and the woman's face was red. It seemed like something inappropriate had happened, but it didn't seem like it. Oh, if there's anything, just press the pager. I'll be right there. The nurse looked left and right for a while and was about to leave and close the door. At this moment, a series of curses came from downstairs. Who the hell is so wicked? Throwing underwear downstairs in the middle of the night. Stinks. How wicked. Damn it. It's covering our heads. The nurse didn't close the door again. No matter how she looked at it, she felt that the two of them were suspicious. This is too wicked. Who the hell is so wicked? Qin Guang's words were filled with righteous indignation as he spoke. Wu Tong was stunned for about 10 seconds before she suddenly reacted. That's right. It's too wicked. The person downstairs is making quite a ruckus. Why don't you quickly inform the hospital's security? It's not good to disturb the rest of the patients. The nurse muttered in her heart, sneaky. Then she turned and left. Just as she closed the door, the nurse couldn't hold it in any longer. She suddenly turned back to open the door and poked her head in. She said casually, Mr. Chen's injuries are very serious. Although the medicine we use doesn't have any side effects, it's really not suitable for him to do any strenuous exercise. She finally left. Strenuous exercise. Female comrade, why are you so knowledgeable? Can you be a little more dignified? It's not what you think at all. Hearing the footsteps getting further away, Wu Tong heaved a sigh of relief. Then she turned her head and saw Qin Guang's strange expression. The huge tent on top of the blanket finally collapsed again. Listen to me. It's not what you think. Wu Tong blushed and waved her hands. Qin Guang's mind was filled with many thoughts. No matter how he thought about it, he realized that he didn't know how to face her. So he smiled decisively. It's fine, I don't mind. Please continue, don't stop. What are you thinking? I'm helping you wipe your body. Don't you think it stinks? So what if you're dirty? You're a patient. A patient. You're injured because of me. I'm your sister, the person you saved. I'm obligated to help you clean your body. Wu Tong said agitatedly and waved the handkerchief in her hand. Didn't you say that you can't let go? Qin Guang smiled awkwardly and quickly reached out to hold Wu Tong's left hand. Yes. It's a little itchy. The water in that stupid pool is quite dirty. Then continue? Wu Tong blushed again. Nodding his head, Qin Guang replied, Yeah, please continue. Close your eyes. I'm embarrassed. Wu Tong tried to pull the quilt away, but she couldn't muster up the courage. When Qin Guang heard that, he obediently laid down and closed his eyes. After that, he felt the quilt was pulled away again. There was a cold feeling between his legs. It was very embarrassing, but his heart felt inexplicably comfortable. Wu Tong also felt very embarrassed. She held the towel with her right hand and stared at him with her almond-shaped eyes. It's drooping. It's not easy to wipe it. Let go of my left hand. I'll hold it with my left hand. Alright, there's no need for that. You sure move fast. Perhaps it was torture or perhaps it was enjoyment. After 5 minutes, Wu Tong finally covered herself with the quilt. At this time, Qin Guang's face was also red. During this period, he secretly opened his eyes several times and saw Wu Tong's shy look. So embarrassing. Wait, something doesn't seem right? Wu Tong suddenly said. What's wrong? Qin Guang looked confused. It's okay. Although we're brother and sister, we're not really related by blood. It's not a mess. Something's wrong. It's really wrong. What's wrong? You're awake. You can wipe it yourself. The two looked at each other blankly. Their brains short-circuited. Completely short-circuited. The atmosphere in the ward was really awkward. Chapter 318. That seems to be the case? The atmosphere was silent for a long time. Qin Guang decided to break the silence and said hesitantly. Wu Tong suddenly sat up straight and put her face in front of Qin Guang. Did you think of it earlier? Did you do it on purpose? Qin Guang was stunned. In fact, he didn't have such a thought at all. Since he woke up at midnight and saw everything that happened in front of him, his brain was basically in a state of paralysis. But looking at Wu Tong's embarrassed and resentful look, he didn't know what was wrong with his brain, but he actually agreed. Alright, I did it on purpose. Wu Tong suddenly smiled and stared at him with a pair of charming eyes. Perverted brother. *CK. Look at your expression, are you going to eat me? Bah. My shoulder hurts. How could I not say it on purpose? You did the right thing. You spoke righteously and justifiably. Please don't doubt yourself and please don't question my character. That's right, but you didn't even remind me. I short-circuited again. Anyway, you're a perverted brother. Alright. Perverted brother then, whatever you say. I'm 5 years older than you. Wu Tong moved closer to Qin Guang and looked at him for a long time. Suddenly she felt bored and lay down. Qin Guang really wanted to say out loud, 5 years older than you is nothing. But even he didn't seem to believe it. It wasn't convincing. Wu Tong lay on her bed with a sluggish face. Her left hand was still tightly holding onto Qin Guang's right hand. Her mind was in a mess. By now she could be completely sure of one thing. From the first day she met this guy, she was likely to fall into his trap. Although it was somewhat inexplicable, although there was no reason, the fact was right there. She had fallen in love with this guy for no reason. She had always wanted to struggle and get rid of him, but she couldn't do it no matter what. Every time she saw him, she wanted to be closer to him. Until now, she was completely unable to extricate herself. Even at that moment, a terrifying and crazy idea appeared in her mind. What was more frightening was that she clearly knew the age gap between them, but she didn't have any will to resist. She didn't even have the courage to deny herself. He and I are really destined to be enemies. How could Wu Tong understand that the first time she had feelings for Qin Guang was indeed because she had been hypnotized by Lioli? Since then, what remained in her heart was the sequela of the hypnosis. If she never saw Qin Guang again, the extra feelings that had been forced upon her would indeed gradually fade until they were obliterated by time without a trace. However, because she cared too much about this matter, she often thought about it in her heart and deep in her own memory. Then, she helped him solve Pan Zhang's problem, and by some strange coincidence, they recognized each other as brother and sister. Later, she met him by chance when they were catching thieves, and later she even pulled her father over to help him. After meeting him time and time again, Qin Guang's character wasn't detestable at all. On the other hand, Wu Tong, who already had the first impression of being hypnotized, fell deeper and deeper into Qin Guang. Later, because of the misunderstanding between them, she actually took the initiative to give in to someone for the first time. Until today, when Qin Guang hid her behind a wooden board and left alone with Sergio and the others, Wu Tong's feelings for him were set in stone. Otherwise, she wouldn't have done such a thing. She was actually bold enough to take the initiative to wipe his body. But why did he have to wake up? It would have been great if he hadn't woken up. Wu Tong gritted her teeth in hatred. Just as she was thinking about this, she suddenly clamped her legs together. Only then did she remember that she seemed to have also been in the reservoir. Women were much more troublesome in this aspect than men. Once she realized this, her body really itched more and more. Oh my God, I have to quickly wash up or I'll get a gynecological disease. Can you let go of me? Wu Tong suddenly asked. Qin Guang's heart suddenly felt empty. What did this big sister's imagination run wild just now? Do you want to run away now? I can't accept this. I also went into the water. The water is so dirty and itchy. I have to wash up or I'll get sick. Wu Tong blushed, thinking that since the two of them were in such a strange state, she might as well say whatever was on her mind. Qin Guang's heart suddenly felt at ease. Yes. Hurry up and wash up. But I won't run. Actually, I don't hate this. It's just that I'm not mentally prepared yet. It's too sudden. Today I only wanted to wipe you a little. Who knew that you could actually wake up after being injected with anesthetics? You better stop. Don't let your imagination run wild. At least not now. Wu Tong glared at him fiercely. After being shy for so long, she felt that she was not herself anymore. She also guessed the thoughts of this perverted younger brother of Qin Guang, so she simply straightened her face and glared at him fiercely. Qin Guang looked aggrieved. Aggrieved my ass. I've let you take advantage of me so much. You're going to eat me up today, are you? Come. I'll risk my life to accompany you. Come. As Wu Tong said that, she straightened her body and pulled her belt. *CK. I've accidentally aroused her anger. Don't. I'm just joking. Besides, you're the one who took advantage of me. Qin Guang hurriedly explained. Wu Tong rolled her eyes, looking as if she had seen through him. Little guy, you think I don't know you? But I really can't today. Look at the bandage on my head. Look at the bandages all over your body. You're a wounded person, so you have to have the awareness of a wounded person. The nurse also said earlier that you shouldn't do strenuous exercise. After saying that, she got up and went to the toilet. This type of special care ward was indeed high-end. Then another day. Qin Guang forced himself to straighten his body. Wu Tong turned around and glanced at him. Another day depends on your performance. Anyway, you're the one who saved my life, and I don't have anyone else that I like for the time being. If you asked me to repay you with my body, I would have agreed immediately. I don't care if I'm older than you by a few years. But now you've temporarily missed the opportunity. Qin Guang refused to give up. You can at least give me some benefits, right? Wu Tong blinked and pretended to ponder. Sure. But you better keep our relationship to yourself. I don't want the news to get out. It'll be like the mess in the police station. The whole world will say that I'm an old cow that eats young grass, but to the outside world, I'm still your noble, elegant, and classy sister. Qin Guang clenched his fist. I'm Gao Dian and you're classy. I want to be classy. I'll beat the classy one, and I'll beat the classy one. After saying that, Wu Tong turned around and went into the toilet. She leaned against the wall, her heart pounding. She knew what her words meant, but in fact, what she said just now had convinced herself. Anyway, he was the one who saved her life, so it wasn't a big deal to give herself to him. Should she try to secretly date him first? Today in the hospital he was seriously injured and his head was full of bruises. Imagining two people covered in bandages fighting each other on the hospital bed, sweating profusely, and then being seen by a nurse who happened to come in for a ward round, this scene was simply too terrifying. Thinking of the two big bloody holes on his shoulders, and his muscles were almost torn, Wu Tong really couldn't bear to torture Qin Guang in such a situation. Forget it, I'm not in a hurry. I'll find a suitable opportunity to watch a movie with him first. Then I'll have a romantic candlelight dinner with him. Then I'll bring him home and decorate the room in a festive manner. I want a wedding room in a rural style. No matter what, I can't give up my first time on a hospital bed. Or should I go out later and let him do it with my hands? Isn't this a popular thing among boys nowadays? Wu Tong didn't know that she had overestimated Qin Guang. Chapter 319. Listening to the pitter-patter of water coming from the bathroom, he couldn't help imagining the scene of her washing a certain spot. Lord Guang expressed that he had completely lost control of his chaos power. Unknowingly, his Qilin arm had already flared up. He was rather impressed with himself. Indeed, the Qilin arm was the strongest technique in the world. F***K, he clearly didn't even have the strength to pick up chopsticks after being shot in both arms, but by the time he reacted, his Qilin arm had already grasped the dragon vein. No way. I'm an injured person. I can't do this to myself. I've clearly come to a realization, so why can't I control my body at all? I must be possessed by a demon. He forcefully raised his hand, affecting the injuries on his shoulders. His shoulders were clearly starting to hurt, but his hand just couldn't stop. Who can stop my Qilin arm that's out of control? Qin Guang roared in his heart as he felt his mouth dry to the point that smoke was about to come out of his throat. Thank you, the nurse, for pouring me a cup of water. Let the old man drink some water to calm his nerves and suppress this evil chaos power. Qin Guang was dumbfounded when he entered the world in the cup. F***K. I never expected that I would enter the world in the cup when my Qilin arm flared up. This is going to kill me. Liuli, please save me for the third time. The old man is going to die of ejaculation. Just as he roared in his heart, Qin Guang saw Liuli, who had transformed into a black pearl, sleeping soundly about 10 meters away. She had first scanned out the 3D model and then forcefully overdraft her powers to help Qin Guang open the heavenly Saint Grail. Liuli had indeed expended too much energy. Therefore she was currently in a deep sleep, and it was a deep sleep after her transformation. At this moment she was completely naked. Although your afro is very unsightly and your charred body is terrible, this is the first time I've had the opportunity to see such a great benefit. Riches come from danger. The bold are stuffed while the timid are starved. Qin Guang decisively moved to Liuli's side. This was a rare opportunity. She looked like a piece of charcoal from afar, so he had to get closer to take a look. 10 meters. 5 meters. 3 meters. Thank God, thank Earth, thank fate, let us meet. Although you look like you are wearing black stockings, your figure is really explosive. Not good. The dual Qilin arms were undone. Instead of asking for help, he was courting death. A terrifying suction force suddenly attacked him from behind. Before Qin Guang went in, he only had one thought in his mind. Am I really going to die this time? What the hell is waiting for me this time? I've never panicked like this before. It wouldn't really turn into the Qilin arm realm, right? Damn it, be reasonable. Normal people wouldn't be able to accept such a setting. Then Qin Guang hit the water with a splash. Just as he poked his head out, he heard the emotionless electronic voice of the Holy Grail in his head. This is the world of the Qilin arm. The objective of the mission is to refine the strongest Qilin arm in history. *CKME. Qin Guang facepalmed. Why is my cheat so shameful? How am I supposed to greet other protagonists in the future? Besides, didn't I just complete the realm of punishment? Why did the second world in cup come so quickly? Lori is still unconscious and you're already here. Can't you at least prepare a little? No matter how unreasonable you are, you still have to abide by the basic rules, right? The old man was careless and fell into a trap. This world in cup is the reward world for the Redeemer after perfectly clearing the realm of punishment. There is no danger to your life. After clearing the stage, in addition to practicing the godly skill Qilin arm, you can also receive the power of the Holy Grail to quickly heal your injuries. The electronic voice of the Holy Grail spoke again. Obviously, after Lori was knocked out, the brainless voice of the Holy Grail took over Lori's role as a commentator. Reward? *CKU. So that's it. Qin Guang really wanted to cry. He was cheated by Lori. That is to say, the realm of punishment is so big, how can there be no benefits at all? This is completely not in line with the identity of the Holy Grail. It's just that this godly skill Qilin arm sounds really cool, but I still feel like something is wrong. Qilin arm is named after the Redeemer's own imagination. It refers to the Redeemer's arm strength increase. The increase is about 50% of the Redeemer's current arm strength. The electronic voice of the Holy Grail came again. Qin Guang was overjoyed. Oh my God, I was really scared to death. I really thought I was going to practice the strongest Qilin arm. It's just an increase in arm strength. In this regard, Qin Guang was already familiar with it. When he first came out of the Sea of Time, the side effect of reaching the 8th immortal god heaven allowed his body to be reborn overnight, maintaining the standard that he trained in the Sea of Time. Now, the realm of this Qilin arm might still be at the level of seeing the spirit sky, but it is related to the reward of the realm of life, so it is definitely not simple. It is only natural that it can increase his strength. Besides, his arms were injured in the realm of punishment, and the muscles on his shoulders were shredded by the bullets of others. If the power of the heavenly Holy Grail could heal them, then it would be natural for it to strengthen them a little, just like the realm of the transient sea. This Qilin arm, I can have it. I just don't know how to train it. Pull-ups? Push-ups? Although it is a bit cliché and boring, it feels good to be able to become stronger without recharging. I'm already very strong now. If my arm strength increases by 50%, I might be able to challenge inner force experts like Second Uncle One. Tomorrow this brother will become a super fighter. The test of the Qilin arm is about to begin. Redeemer, please prepare. Under Qin Guang's expectant gaze, countless strange cylindrical objects that have been forcibly censored gradually floated up from the water. They densely covered the 100-meter radius of the cup world pool like grass. What the hell? Why do these things look so familiar? He lowered his head and looked at a certain part of his body through the water. Qin Guang slapped his face. Wash the motor. He walked away. After such a big detour, you let me go from despair to hope, and now you instantly extinguish my hope. What's with this joke? I can't play this game anymore. He bravely swam forward and forced himself to take a closer look. Thank God it is not like that. It is a standard metal cylinder. The brass material looks a bit similar to the skin color. But why would the Holy Grail hang two egg-sized pendants next to the metal pillar? There was no need for that at all, okay? Are you trying to scare me? This is very easy to misunderstand, okay? An electronic voice came from the air. Please use friction to generate heat to ignite the brass fireworks. If it is successfully launched, the index of the Qilin arm will increase by 1. Additional explanation: the shape of the brass fireworks is set according to the most commonly used item of the Redeemer. It can increase the Redeemer's sense of immersion. Friction to generate heat. Brass fireworks. Launch. What do you mean by most commonly used item? Although the old man is an experienced driver, I drive an online taxi, not a car. I will never admit this kind of thing even if you beat me to death. Your Holy Grail is so indecent. The method you used to train the Qilin arm is too shameful. I protest. Qin Guang covered his face. Chapter 320. In a sense, the normal training method for the Qilin arm was indeed like this. However, the twists and turns really tortured his heart. Fine, I'll just accept my fate. This is much better than what I was worried about at the beginning, where I would die of exhaustion. If he had to blame something, he could only blame himself for being too relaxed and falling into the trap of the heavenly Holy Grail. It was also Lori's fault, that damned liar. There was clearly such a huge reward after completing the punishment realm, but in order to make him ignore Wu Tong, she actually lied through her teeth. Apart from that, Qin Guang secretly swore that he would definitely be an upright gentleman in the future and would not easily give himself false promises, especially when doing certain things. He had to endure the disaster that his own wretchedness had attracted, even if he had to hold back his tears. Closing his eyes, Qin Guang silently stretched out his hands. After a long time, Bayu, the fireworks were launched and the cup realm above his head shone with a brilliant light. A huge from character floated in the sky. Pass Qilin arm index +1. The old man's Qilin arm had become a little stronger. There was really no need to top up. Since the brass fireworks were soaked in water, it was needless to say how strong the thermal conductivity of copper was. It was not easy to generate enough heat from friction to launch the fireworks. Fortunately, the cup realm was considerate enough to consider his difficulties. On the one hand, it made the surface of the brass fireworks into a frosted state to increase the friction efficiency, and on the other hand, it made the calluses on his hands grow abnormally fast. Furthermore, his arms were never tired and could move crazily like a perpetual motion machine. He would not feel hungry or tired, and his body would not swell even if it was soaked in water. As soon as he squeezed his hands, he could clearly feel the calluses on his palms growing like weeds in spring. Qin Guang could not help but complain. Although it was a free reward, it was not easy at all. It was more boring than sharpening pencils and more difficult than playing Dota. The heavens took pity on him. When he was dealing with the fourth brass fireworks, the quick-witted Qin Guang realized something was amiss. The words formed by the first 4 fireworks were read together, starting from 0. As a veteran web novel reader, Master Guang felt that these 4 words were really King familiar. But he had a bad feeling about this. Could it be? After 5,000 fireworks, Qin Guang plunged his head into the water. He planned to drown himself. It turned out to be the first chapter of the masterpiece, starting from 0, which was more than 20 million words long. What the CK? I'm so ket up. Many years ago, when he was still a high school student, he once complained that if the book ended one day, his old friend who was still alive would print it out on A4 paper and burn it for him in the underworld. This year the book was really finished. Qin Guang remembered that he couldn't hold on after reading more than 1,000 chapters. Until now, he still didn't have the courage to open the book again. So here's the problem. Do I have to use the fireworks mode to read the book? Just thinking about it was terrifying. There was no reason for this. This pool of water with a radius of more than 100 meters couldn't possibly contain more than 20 million brass fireworks, right? The density didn't match. Qin Guang turned around and found that the brass firework, which had sunk after being fired, had quietly emerged again. Okay, pretend I didn't say anything. This dog has a resurrection function. Can be recycled. He really had no idea how much time had passed. Perhaps it had been so long that he had lost track of time. Thankfully, the Holy Grail's thoughtfulness had stopped his train of thought, or else he would have collapsed after reading more than 100 chapters. The difficulty of using calluses to generate heat was not something a web novelist could compare to. In the beginning it was already impressive to be able to light one firework in 10 minutes, but as he got more and more familiar with the process, the frequency of his hands shaking increased, and the time shortened to 5 minutes, 1 minute, 30 seconds, 10 seconds, 1 second, half a second. Qin Guang's hands were shaking at an extreme speed. The frequency of the shaking was even faster than a special machine that had its own rotating rotor. He floated on the surface of the water with his hands raised in front of him. He took a deep breath. In that instant, with his hands as the center, the surface of the lake in the world of the cup surged to both sides, the waves reaching 20 to 30 meters into the air. In the blink of an eye there was a bayou sound and the fireworks shot into the sky. The waves stopped and the water stopped. All that was left was the lonely back with half of his body submerged in the water. That was how confident he was with the terrifying ultra-high frequency vibration. In fact, the Holy Grail could not be blamed for this. His strength was already at the level of a veteran pirate, much stronger than the average person. On top of that, he had increased it by 50%, almost at the level of a world weightlifting champion. Since it could not change his body shape too obviously, the Holy Grail could only use this stupid method to train the muscles in his arms. It trained his muscle structure day after day, year after year, until it reached or even exceeded the limits of human muscle fibers. Although it was a scam, it was really effective. When the words "book complete" finally appeared, Qin Guang's tears streamed down his face. He lowered his head to look at the calluses on his hands that were so thick that grass could grow on them. It was obvious that he had become the most loyal fan of this generation's masterpiece. The world of the Kirin arm is complete. The Redeemer has obtained the Kirin arm. Qin Guang covered his face again. I finally made it through. Bang. His hands were shaking so hard that he sent himself flying. Due to the fact that Lioli was still unconscious, Qin Guang did not stay in the cloud sea for a second after leaving the world within a cup. In the blink of an eye, he had returned to the real world, maintaining the state of holding the cup in one hand and the pot in the other. 1 second. 1.5 seconds? In any case, by the time he came back to his senses, the cyanized white dragon had already fired its destructive white beam. Damn it, can my hands not tremble? Although there was no longer any pain in his shoulder, he only felt that he had endless strength. But what did it mean that he couldn't stop shaking? Qin Guang hurriedly moved his hands away and looked at the wet bedding. He wanted to cry but no tears came out. He pulled the quilt over with his right hand and decisively decided to dry himself. His left hand placed the cup on the bedside table next to the bed. There was another loud bang. Half of the cup sank into the bedside table made of laminate. The high-frequency vibration was really scary. Can I still use my hands? Qin Guang's face was broken. He laid on the bed and put his hands in front of his eyes. He squinted his eyes and looked at them carefully. On the surface, it seemed that his hands were not moving at all, but he knew in his heart that his hands were vibrating at an extremely high frequency that the naked eye could not capture. There was simply no way to stop. Buzz, buzz, buzz. A mosquito that did not open its eyes flew toward him and was about to feast on the back of his hand. In the next instant the mosquito was shaken into powder. It was too tragic, too tragic. At this moment the bathroom door suddenly opened. Wu Tong had already changed into a patient's gown and was holding on to her clothes. She stuck her head out and saw that Qin Guang had already sat up straight. She blushed and walked over. She threw her clothes on the bedside table. Qin Guang casually glanced at her and saw that her underwear and underwear were all wrapped together. It was clear that her underwear was a vacuum cleaner and there was nothing inside. Chapter 321. Why aren't you sleeping? Are you? Wu Tong said as she stretched out her left hand to hold Qin Guang's hand. Qin Guang quickly hid his hands under his butt. Don't. I'm not pulling anymore. What would happen if she managed to hold his hand? She could suffer a comminuted fracture at any moment. The bed started to shake. The frequency was high but the intensity was low. Thanks to the Special Care Unit's super durable mattress, he knew it was this brand. Wu Tong was puzzled. What's wrong? Are you not feeling well? Oh, I've thought about it. This is a ward today and it's not convenient. But, can. As she said that, she stretched her hand under Qin Guang's blanket. She was really going to do what she had decided in the toilet. Qin Guang stared at her. He wanted to stop her but did not dare to take his hand out. His butt was hurting badly but he had to hold on. Don't, but it was too late. She had already touched the wet, sticky mass. Wu Tong was also confused. She took her hand out and sniffed. It smells fishy. Qin Guang wanted to cover his face again, but he remembered what happened before he left the world in the cup. He did not dare to do so. His face was not as thick as his butt. With the frequency and intensity of the shaking, his cheekbones would definitely break if he touched his face. I was going to help you with my hand, but you're not doing your best. You can't blame me for that. Wu Tong was pleased. Since she had already made up her mind, she was able to let it go. She was indeed a tough woman. Virgin? Just thinking about it is enough to cause an avalanche? Qin Guang nodded. Yes. What a coincidence. I'm also a virgin. Wu Tong grinned. What a coincidence. Since we're so fated to meet, and since you have guns in your hands, I'll reluctantly take care of the wounded. Don't let your imagination run wild. Please treat me as an honest police officer. As Wu Tong spoke, she grabbed a box of toilet paper and stretched her hand into Qin Guang's bed to clean him up. 5 minutes later. Comrade Wu Tong, can we talk about this? Can you take your hand away? I feel weird. Tired of it already? I think it's fun. No. I have another reason. It's very important, but I don't know how to tell you. Qin Guang was truly enjoying it, but his hands were trembling too violently. His butt was on the verge of exploding. He was in pain and happiness at the same time. The pain kept stacking and it gradually overcame the pleasure. Wu Tong looked at his serious expression and couldn't help but feel disappointed. I'm really not sick of it. It's just a special situation today. Let's continue another day. Qin Guang caught onto her emotions and immediately comforted her. Wu Tong finally stopped. All right, another day it is then. I clearly feel that there's movement again. That night, Qin Guang slept on his side. He didn't dare to place his hands under the blanket, so he placed them outside. In any case, he didn't have to be afraid of mosquitoes. My butt hurts. I don't even need to look at it to know that there are 2 patches of bruises. Behind him, Wu Tong had unknowingly moved closer to his back. He didn't know if she was really asleep or pretending to be asleep, but her sleeping posture was terrible. She hugged Qin Guang's back like an octopus. Qin Guang could only use his back and his healthy buttocks to firmly press against Wu Tong's chest and stomach. On the other hand, he desperately stretched his hands out of the bed, not daring to let her touch his hands. When will this super mighty tremor stop for me? Originally, this was a great opportunity for him to grope her, but it seemed that he couldn't use his hands now. If it wasn't for this lousy matter and Wu Tong's shameless behavior, Qin Guang would have at least had a taste of her. He felt sorry for himself. There was another soft paw sound on his fingers. It was like the electric sparks from an ultraviolet mosquito killer. Another poor little life left the world. The excitement gradually faded, and the anesthetic hit his heart again. Qin Guang's eyelids became heavier and heavier. Thank God for the anesthetic. Otherwise he would definitely not be able to sleep today. Wu Tong was actually stunned. Under normal circumstances, she should have known that with the injuries on both of Qin Guang's shoulders, he wouldn't be able to sleep like this. But at this time she was not normal. She walked between life and death. It would be a lie to say that she wasn't tired. Her brain was also moving slowly. She really fell asleep. Hugging her brother's big doll, she slept peacefully like never before. The next morning Wu Tong woke up first. She comfortably twisted her body and pressed her face against the big doll. It was warm, fleshy, and made of real leather. Stepping over the big plushie's body, he grabbed a certain part in the middle of the plushie, as if he was grabbing something even hotter and harder. Wu Tong slowly regained consciousness. Her brain was still a little stiff. She squeezed her right hand hard. Was it a cylindrical hand warmer? The material of this real leather was really good workmanship. Suddenly a thought flashed across her mind. She suddenly opened her eyes and woke up in shock. What kind of sleeping posture was this? What was I doing with my hand? No, what was I afraid of? Didn't I think it through? Wu Tong didn't let go. She quietly lifted her body and looked at Qin Guang's face. This guy was really sleeping soundly. His saliva was all over the pillow. It was still early in the morning and he was already pointing a gun out the window. What a bad brother. She added a little more force. Gun in hand, follow me. At this time, the door of the ward suddenly opened. Wu Tong quickly covered Qin Guang with the quilt and sat on the bed, cross-legged as if she was cultivating. The person who barged in was none other than her good friend, Tang Ying. Tang Ying's face was a little pale, as if she had suffered a great shock. Wu Tong, are you okay? I woke up early in the morning and heard that last night. Before she could finish her sentence, she saw Wu Tong sitting on the edge of the bed. She threw herself at Wu Tong and burst into tears. She whimpered, "You scared me to death. Why didn't you come to my hospital? How did I find out about such a big thing from other people's mouths? How could you do this to me, you damned girl? Wu Tong was embarrassed. She patted Tang Ying's back and spent a lot of effort to calm her best friend down. She shushed her again. Lower your voice. It's all because of this guy that we didn't go to your hospital. Don't wake him up. Sleep will help him recover. Qin Guang narrowed his eyes. He was already cursing Tang Ying in his heart. If you weren't my mother's attending physician, I would have cut all ties with you right now. Did the heavens send you here to punish me? I'm going to explode. On the other side, Tang Ying and Wu Tong were already chatting in low voices. Tang Ying harshly blamed Wu Tong, saying that she was not good enough to not inform her about such a big thing. Chapter 322. Wu Tong spent a lot of time and effort to convince Tang Ying. She even sold out Qin Guang at the same time, but she didn't go into details. She only told Tang Ying that her survival this time was all thanks to Qin Guang, her younger brother. Tang Ying's mouth was agape. She turned her head from Wu Tong's side and looked at Qin Guang a few more times. Does this kid want to die? How dare he get involved in this kind of thing? Don't tell me he fell in love with you? Wu Tong blushed as she tried to defend herself. Don't overthink it. He's my brother and I'm his sister. Anyway, if it weren't for him, I'd really be dead. Tang Ying recalled the first time she met Qin Guang. She didn't know what to think, but she nodded. He's quite special. I really envy you for having such a good brother. Why are you envious of me? We're good sisters. He's my brother, so he's your brother too. Besides, you saved Andy Feng's life. If something happens to you, he won't just stand by and watch. On the other hand, Wu Tong started comforting Tang Ying. In her heart, Qin Guang was basically a living saint. Last night you two slept here together? Tang Ying suddenly asked out of nowhere. Wu Tong nodded. He wouldn't let go of my hand no matter what. He said he had to hold my hand. I couldn't leave and I didn't even go to the summary meeting. He didn't do anything to you? Wu Tong blushed. No, I took advantage of him a lot. But taking care of patients, I'm just doing it. Don't overthink it. Look at your blushing face. Do you think I'm blind? Can the two of us not play the hypocritical game? After so many years, do you think I don't know you? Come on, just tell me what's going on. I know your temperament. You'll tell me sooner or later. Why don't you just admit it now? That's right. What's wrong with you? Tang Ying said softly. She was happy for Wu Tong, but at the same time she felt a sense of loss. I knew I couldn't hide it from you. But I'm 5 years older than him. Yeah, you're much older. But what does it matter? I couldn't care less about what would happen in the future. I was determined to be an iron-blooded police officer. Who knows when I might die for the country. I didn't want to leave any regrets. I don't care. I've already made up my mind. Wu Tong said resolutely. Unless he's tired of me, my life is his. As his sister, I have the obligation to teach him something that only adults understand. Tang Ying gasped. Aren't you ashamed of yourself? Wu Tong rolled her eyes and said shamelessly, What's there to be ashamed of? What's wrong with being a 25-year-old spinster and having a taste of tender grass? I'm also a normal woman. There were also normal needs in that aspect. I didn't have a suitable partner in the past. I think he's pretty good. You, on the other hand, aren't you already so old? I won't be able to accompany you in the future. When will you? All right. Fine. Come on. Don't drag me into this. I'm not as flirtatious as you. All right, I'm too lazy to care about you. But you can't lose your humanity when you have the opposite sex. You can't forget your old sister after having a little man. Tang Ying chuckled. Her tone was indescribably vulgar. Damn. So the two of you have such a dirty and corrupt relationship. But why am I inexplicably looking forward to it? This isn't right. Qin Guang, who had been pretending to be asleep, eavesdropped on the two's whispers. He felt that his outlook on life had been severely impacted. City people really know how to have fun. The world of adults is too scary. These two women actually have a secret affair. No wonder the two of them are so decisive. I'm so shocked. All right, how did you take advantage of him yesterday? Tang Ying asked again. Her voice was very low and seemed to have a slight tremble. She seemed to be very curious and a little perverted. She seemed to have recalled the brief flirting with Qin Guang that day at her house. The sound of Wu Tong scratching her head could be heard. She scratched her head a little. Actually, it's nothing. I just helped him wipe his body. Nothing really happened. In the end Bio? Yeah. Tang Ying sighed. As expected. You're like an old cow that eats young grass. You can't do it for now. What's wrong? What's wrong? What do you mean? Are you against it? Wu Tong panicked. Tang Ying sighed again. No, it's something else. Alright, you've met his father, right? It's Qin Guili's Uncle Qin. Yeah, I've met him. He's a pretty good uncle. What's wrong? Tang Ying wanted to say something but stopped. Some time ago, Uncle Qin asked me for a prescription to treat kidney deficiency. He said it was for a relative in his hometown, but I later found out that the prescription was actually for Qin Guang. He's sick. Kidney deficiency. Qin Guang gritted his teeth. He wanted to smash his fist into her ribs. Can they still have a pleasant conversation? Why did the two of you suddenly become like this when you were just chatting nicely? Can you not touch a sore spot? That's not what happened at all. What made him even more depressed was that the topic of their conversation immediately shifted to Qin Guang's kidney deficiency. Last night, he had only heard the shower sound, and had taken action within 5 minutes, which had become irrefutable evidence in their eyes. The two of them immediately hit it off. One was the self-proclaimed attending physician of Qin Guang, and the other was the self-proclaimed sister. Both of them decided to save this young and pitiful man who had lost his footing. Wu Tong even swore to herself that before his kidney deficiency was cured, she must restrain herself and not provoke him. After all, the essence of a person with kidney deficiency was especially precious. Overexerting it would definitely damage the foundation. If she gave him another taste of it, it would be disastrous. Hearing this, Qin Guang couldn't hold himself back anymore. He sat up straight and stared at the two of them. He pretended to rub his sleepy eyes. *CK. Fortunately, his hands stopped shaking after a night. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to explain himself. What did you just say? Kidney deficiency? Sister Tang Ying? Why are you here? *CK. Don't tell me the two of you are saying that I have kidney deficiency. Qin Guang prided himself on his acting skills. He couldn't let the two of them know that he had woken up. Did you hear that? Wu Tong blushed. She immediately put on the attitude of a big sister and patted his head. Don't be sad. It can be cured. Tang Ying looked at him from the side. I still say the same thing. You're still young. Don't give up on treatment. What the *CK? I really don't have that problem. This, if you don't believe me, let me have a checkup. Qin Guang really wanted to find a rope and hang himself. Tang Ying continued, actually, it's hard to come up with an accurate conclusion about kidney deficiency using Western medicine's theory. After all, for normal people there are long and short periods. A short period of 10 seconds is normal, and a long period of half an hour to an hour isn't an exaggeration. Everyone's physique is different, and the checkup won't be able to tell the difference. You don't have back pain or weak legs, so the checkup results will definitely show that you're fine. Then why did you insist that I have a kidney deficiency? Qin Guang continued to protest. Chapter 323. Tang Ying rolled her eyes at him disdainfully. But you lost your composure just by listening to the sound. You're definitely sick. Stop quibbling. Whatever you say is useless. I've seen a lot of patients like you. Wu Tong also chimed in. Yesterday I thought it was fun to pinch it, but you said you had another reason and didn't let me play. At that time you said it wasn't easy to talk about it. It must be because you're weak in that area. I know it's difficult to talk about it. You're afraid of a continuous leak in a short period of time, right? Qin Guang was dumbfounded. You're so shameless. Continuous leak? No wonder you're a civil servant. Even if you're talking about something so wretched, you can still put it so nicely. At that moment, the nurse who was changing Qin Guang's dressing pushed the door open and came in. She was shocked when she saw Qin Guang sitting up. She rushed over and pressed him down on the bed. Lie down. Lie down. Do you want to die? Do you want to become a disabled person? Qin Guang reacted. His arm was as good as new overnight. If the nurse removed the bandage on the spot, many people would pee in their pants. He might even be sent to the lab to be cut up and used as a lab rat. He didn't say anything. If he couldn't explain himself, the old man would run away first. He didn't care if his crotch was empty or not. Anyway, he had the patient's pants to cover it. He jumped off the bed and hung his sports bag with his neck. Then he deliberately lowered his arms and pretended to be weak. He shouted like a madman as he ran out of the room. I'm not sick. I'm not weak. I'm not weak. You two bastards. In the blink of an eye, Qin Guang was nowhere to be seen. In less than 10 seconds, a commotion could be heard from downstairs. Qin Guang had already dashed out of the hospital and onto the streets. It only took him 10 seconds to get down the stairs. Wu Tong, Tang Ying, and the nurse looked at each other. The nurse had no idea what was going on. Wu Tong looked at Tang Ying blankly. Isn't his reaction a little too much? Tang Ying sighed. Sigh, how pitiful. He's under too much pressure. Running out of the hospital, Qin Guang didn't plan to go back. He casually stopped a taxi on the road. He couldn't go back to school because Wu Tong would probably go back to school to look for him because she was worried about his injury. Qin Guang was distressed. Where should he go now? This patient gown was too loose and there was a gap inside. He felt that something was wrong. Bro, what are you wearing? Don't tell me you're a mental patient who escaped from the hospital? The taxi driver in front of him didn't look carefully when he was picking him up. Now he began to get nervous. From time to time he pretended to look back at his patient's clothes from the rearview mirror, intentionally or unintentionally. Can we still have a pleasant chat? Do I look like a psychopath? I'm a proper student of a prestigious university, okay? Take me downtown first. I need to change. It's so annoying. I told you that I could be discharged from the hospital, but my family insisted on being stubborn and made me grow hair all over my body. Qin Guang lied through his teeth. The taxi driver started to talk about life philosophy. Young man, don't blame your family for being long-winded. The elders are doing this for your own good. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you, brother driver. Listen to me. In this life, health is the most important thing. If Qin Guang knew that his lie would trigger the driver's chatterbox, he wouldn't have spouted such nonsense even if he was beaten to death. When he arrived downtown, he was on the verge of a breakdown. He had no cash on him, so he used his mobile phone to transfer 50 yuan to the driver and ran away. He rushed into the department store and changed his clothes under the astonished gaze of countless people. In the changing room, he looked at his shoulders in the mirror for a long time. He could still vividly remember how badly his shoulders were injured last night. But at this time, looking at his shoulders in the mirror, there were no injuries at all. All he could see was his strong, angular muscles. He took a step back and punched the air in front of him. There was a faint whistling sound in the air. Qin Guang didn't know how strong his arm strength was, but the power of this punch was indeed much stronger than before. He estimated that he could blow up a sandbag with one punch. Although it wasn't easy to get the Kirin arm, it was indeed powerful. Qin Guang hid outside for 3 days before he dared to go to Wujing City Hospital. He had no choice but to explain to Wu Tong and Tang Ying that his shoulders felt uncomfortable as soon as he ran out, so he simply found another hospital to lie down. The two asked him which hospital he was in. Of course, Qin Guang wouldn't tell them. He only said that his heart was hurt and that he needed to think about his life alone. As for his parents, it was another set of excuses. Qin Guang only told his father that he went to find Jiang Yage and would be back in a few days. As for how to comfort his mother, it was his father's business. Anyway, Jiang Yage had taken countless scapegoats. There was no harm in taking one more. It was easy to persuade his classmates. It was summer vacation time, so everyone had to go home one after another. After talking to his 3 grandchildren on the phone, they left Wujing according to the original plan the next day. Sun Xiaoxuan insisted on seeing Qin Guang, or else she wouldn't even take the plane. Qin Guang had no choice but to sneak back to the school and drive his car. He personally sent Sun Xiaoxuan to the airport and let her see his healthy body. Only then did he appease her. Wu Tong looked for Qin Guang for 2 days but she couldn't find him. She had no choice but to return to Wenxing. Her commendation had been announced. Although she still held the position of a branch captain, her administrative rank was directly promoted to the deputy director of the Wenxing branch. With her background, this meant that she had taken the first step to a meteoric rise. At the age of 25, she became the deputy director of a township branch, deputy section chief, and a first-class supervisor. She also had such a great credit on her back. In the future, as long as Wu Shan didn't fall and she didn't make any principled mistakes, no one could stop her from rising. Wu Shan was also happy. Of course, he wanted to promote Wu Tong's position as soon as possible so that his precious daughter wouldn't have to charge in the front line all day. Now that it was justifiable, no one could say that he, Wu Shan, practiced favoritism and made an exception to promote his daughter. Could you? Why don't you try to defeat 7 bandits by yourself? Although Wu Shan didn't have more opportunities to thank Qin Guang in person, he asked Wu Tong to pass the message to him. Anyway, he owed Qin Guang a big favor and he would be family in the future. In addition, Qin Guang received another 200,000 yuan as a Good Samaritan award. If it was in the past, the poor old man would definitely jump 3 feet high. But now he had so much money in his bank account that he was too lazy to count it. He could only ask Wu Tong to collect the money on his behalf and transfer the money to his bank card. He didn't even want to show his face in front of Wu Tong to collect the money. There was really no way to explain the injury on his shoulder. On the evening of the third day, Qin Guang found a community hospital, gave a few hundred yuan for free, and asked the doctor to wrap a thick layer of white bandages on his shoulders. Then he braced himself and went to Wujing City Hospital. Maybe it was a little too rushed, but Qin Guang missed his mother. About 2 hours ago, in the jungle more than 100 miles away from Wujing City, there was an unprecedented fierce gunfight. Chapter 324. The anti-tracking ability of World Number 8 and his men was indeed terrifying, but what was even more terrifying was the team led by Xuelin. They were as vicious as a viper and as sharp as a hunting dog. World Number 8 and his men tried their best, but they were still bitten by them. The intelligence capability of the Chinese military was fully revealed. Terrorists who dared to break into China would be severely injured if not killed. Everyone else died and World Number 8 lost a layer of skin. Apart from World Number 8, the others were all executed. Everyone had the right to punish these bandits. Their existence was a hidden danger, and they dared to enter China's territory. The military's attitude was extremely firm. If you dare to come, we dare to fight. If you come, we must fight. If you fight, we must win. This was the unshakable principle that the Chinese military had adhered to for decades. It was extremely tough, and it was only to defend the prestige of the country. It wouldn't retreat just because you belonged to some extraordinary organization. In recent decades, the Wuxia military had always been so tough, so this land had become a rare pure land in the increasingly dangerous and terrifying international situation. Xuelin wiped the blood off his face and looked coldly at the corpse of the white man whose head had been smashed. He was in a terrible mood. In the end, one of them had escaped. In addition, he had lost 3 brothers on his side. The enemy was too strong, especially the Chinese man who had escaped. His marksmanship was extremely accurate, his movements were even more agile, and he had extremely rich experience in jungle warfare. If he hadn't raised his hand and shot him in the wrist by a fluke, which scared him away, he was afraid that the losses on his side would have been even more disastrous. His comrades also had ashen faces. The most important bond between men was that they had carried a gun together. No soldier could remain indifferent to the death of a comrade. In the communication device, the Major General in charge of remote command comforted Xuelin. Little Xue, you don't have to blame yourself. Being able to escape with only one person is already more than enough to complete the mission. The other party is the top soldier of the Broken World organization. It's normal for him to have some extraordinary skills. Because this was a special mission, the compensation for the dead soldiers was increased by 50%. We will properly arrange their funeral. But in World Number 5's third steel factory, the other group of bandits was completely annihilated. There were no casualties. Wu Tong was just an ordinary police officer. We are the chosen soldiers, but I... Xuelin's voice was full of self-blame and unwillingness. There was a brief silence on the phone, and the Major General sighed. There's something fishy about this. You don't have to compare. You've really done a good job. Xuelin cut off the communication device. Her eyes were bloodshot. 3 of my brothers died here, but Sister Wu Tong wiped out all the enemies by herself without any injuries. How could I not compare? He wasn't jealous of Wu Tong, who had grown up with him in the compound. He was just blaming himself. Xuelin knelt on the ground and looked at the corpse of her comrade. She punched her chest again and again. Why am I so weak? At this time, Qin Guang was also not feeling well. Originally, after entering the hospital and chatting with his parents, Master Guang was in a good mood when he saw that his mother's spirit was improving day by day. Then he was dragged out by Tang Ying. When he was in the ward, he completely forgot to continue pretending to be injured. He couldn't pretend to be injured in front of his parents either. He poured water, peeled fruits, and helped his mother fiddle with the tablet to find a TV show. Tang Ying saw everything from the beginning to the end. Her beautiful eyes kept sweeping up and down his shoulder, looking like she wanted to say something but was hesitant. Tang Ying knew that Qin Guang had a gunshot wound on his shoulder. Seeing him pretending to be fine in order not to worry his parents, she felt an indescribable pain in her heart. But she couldn't expose him at this time, so she felt terrible. Every time Qin Guang moved, Tang Ying's eyelids would twitch violently, as if she was the one in pain. This is a gunshot wound. You won't be able to stop taking the medicine for half a month, and it will take at least 2 to 3 months to recover. You're destroying your own hand. You're going to become a disabled person. Finally, Tang Ying couldn't hold it in anymore. She came forward with a stiff face and said that she wanted to borrow Qin Guang's help. Then she grabbed his clothes and dragged him out. Qin Guang knew that he was going to be interrogated, so he had no choice but to follow her out with a bitter face. Do you want to die? Don't you feel any pain? Tang Ying raised her hand and wanted to pinch Qin Guang's shoulder, but she didn't dare to touch him. She didn't have as many thoughts about Qin Guang as Wu Tong did. It was just that she had received a great favor from him, and she knew what he had done to earn money to save her mother. Moreover, she was touched by his crying appearance on the day of the successful surgery, so she treated him as a true friend. Now that she saw him shamelessly treating his injury, she couldn't help but worry for him. It's actually not that serious. Qin Guang thought for a moment and decided to throw the blame to the mysterious expert. I don't care if you believe it or not, I'll say it anyway. Actually, I met a very mysterious guy in the past few days. He gave me a black ointment, and I don't feel any pain at all after a few days. How is that possible? Nonsense. As a senior medical worker, Tang Ying didn't believe it from the bottom of her heart. Qin Guang stared at her and said, "It's true." As he said that, he simply posed like a bodybuilder. Tang Ying pulled Qin Guang and dragged him to her dorm room. She forced him to take off his jacket and removed his bandages, insisting on seeing what was going on. When Tang Ying saw his perfect deltoid muscles, she covered her mouth and looked up and down for a long time. She really couldn't find any trace of injury, not even a scar. Oh my God. This is a miracle in the history of medicine. This is a miracle. Where do you think that person is? Which hospital is it? Take me there. This is a Nobel Prize in medicine. Tang Ying wasn't making a fuss out of nothing. On the contrary, as a doctor from Moreland's Medical College, she had seen a lot of things, but she had never met anyone who could completely recover from a gunshot wound in just 3 days without any signs of injury. Qin Guang also put on a shocked expression and asked, "Emijim? There was a big scar this morning and it's gone now? Which hospital is it? Tell me." Scratching his head, Qin Guang replied, "Actually, I'm lying to you guys. I wasn't in the hospital for the past few days, and I found a hotel to stay after meeting that person. That person would only change my bandages once a day. This morning he changed my bandages and left. He didn't leave me any contact information. I asked him but he wouldn't give it to me. Before he left he only said something like, 'There is no Bodhi tree, how can there be dust?' This kind of strange and meaningless words." Huh. Tang Ying subconsciously felt that he was talking nonsense, but his unscathed shoulder was clearly in front of her. She had no choice but to believe him. Seeing her distracted look, Qin Guang put on his clothes and patted her shoulder to comfort her. "Don't be too upset. The world is big and there are all kinds of strange things. There is no end to learning." Tang Ying nodded blankly. "Indeed. If there's nothing else, I'll go back to the ward." Seeing that she had been bluffed, Qin Guang decisively prepared to slip away. Okay. Let me think first. What kind of medicine could have such an effect and what's the theory behind it? Take your time to think about it. I'll make a move first. Qin Guang chuckled as he opened Tang Ying's room door and walked out. As soon as he stepped out, a young man in casual clothes with a pale face appeared in front of Qin Guang. When he heard the door open, he stopped daydreaming and stared straight at Qin Guang. "Qin Guang, you killed Sergio's group, right?" Chapter 325. Qin Guang suddenly stopped in his tracks. He turned around to look at the young man with narrowed eyes. He smelled a familiar scent from this person, which made him exceptionally vigilant. That's right, he smelled blood just like he did in the transient sea, as if he had just killed someone not long ago. The other party's words were too straightforward and caught him off guard. Qin Guang quickly became alert. Could Sergio's accomplices have found their way here? What about my parents? A terrifying killing intent swept out from his body in an instant, and the air seemed to freeze at this moment. "Don't be nervous, I'm not an enemy. I'm Xuelin, a childhood friend of Sister Wu Tong. I'm a soldier," Xuelin spoke again. Xuelin opened his mouth again. He realized that he couldn't continue acting tough, otherwise he might really die. The moment he was enveloped by Qin Guang's murderous intent, he couldn't help but feel his hair stand on end even with his experience in battle. Qin Guang's murderous intent retracted instantly. "Soldier? Why are you looking for me? How those people died has nothing to do with me. I'm just a good citizen who happened to be in the right place. You can just lie to others about this. There's no need to resort to insinuations. I've been following Sister Wu Tong since I was 3. How can I not know how capable she is? I don't expect you to admit it because it's not important. It's fine as long as I know you killed Sergio's men. I smell a familiar scent from you. You're the same kind of person as me. Your hands are also stained with blood. Qin Guang spread his hands. What you think is none of my business. Goodbye. Qin Guang had already made up his mind that he wouldn't admit it even if he was beaten to death. For the military to come knocking on his door so quickly, he couldn't rule out the possibility that they've taken a fancy to his ability. What kind of joke is this? I'm a millionaire, all right? Do I have to go and live my life like you guys? Although I'm somewhat patriotic, I'm not that enlightened. I'm busy dealing with the heavenly Holy Grail and don't have the time to protect the country. I don't have the time to protect the country with you guys. At most, I'll just wait until I become the owner of the heavenly Holy Grail. A random decree can guarantee China's safety for 10,000 years. Stop. Seeing that he was about to leave, Xuelin became anxious. She suddenly said from behind, other than Ninth Brother's group, the bandits were split into two groups. There was another group led by another warrior of the Shattered World, Eighth Brother. I led my special forces in pursuit. The other bandits were killed by me and my comrades, but Eighth Brother managed to escape. Qin Guang stopped in his tracks. So you're here to remind me? Will they take revenge on me? Xuelin shook her head. No. They probably won't find you, but they might find Sister Wu Tong. That might not be the case. Uncle Wu kept the news under wraps. He only held a very small commendation ceremony in private. At that time, the police issued a gag order. There's no such thing as an impenetrable wall, right? Qin Guang asked. Xuelin nodded. Indeed. What do you mean? Don't you want to completely eradicate that world breaker you mentioned? Wu Tong will be in danger at any time. Xuelin shook her head again. No, Sister Wu Tong's status is extraordinary. Our Chinese soldiers aren't pushovers. Although the Shattered World is well known internationally, they might not dare to openly declare war on us. As long as they don't leave the country, there shouldn't be too much of a problem. All right, you came to me today just to remind me of this? Then let me thank you, Qin Guang said. Not only that, 3 of my comrades died and 8th Brother escaped. I don't understand how you managed to wipe out 9th Brother and the others without a scratch. I can't accept it. Qin Guang rolled his eyes. If you can't accept it, find a piece of tofu and kill yourself. You're crazy. Before he finished speaking, Xuelin suddenly attacked. She took a step forward and punched at Qin Guang's abdomen with a gust of wind. You're not done yet? You want to fight just because you don't like it? Qin Guang's pupils shrank. He raised his hand like lightning, and his right hand formed into a claw. He caught Xuelin's fist at a speed that was difficult for the naked eye to follow. Then he pushed it forward forcefully, and a terrifying force erupted from his shoulder. When he exerted too much force, his right hand even had the power of overclocking vibration. Xuelin took 3 steps back. Eventually, she couldn't stabilize herself and fell to the ground on her butt. Just like that, Xuelin felt the bones in her right hand go completely soft. The terrifying vibration just now swept through her entire right hand like an electric shock, causing her joints to suffer serious injuries. Qin Guang quickly walked past her. Are you convinced now? You're too weak. Don't play martial arts with me. It's not popular here. I'm just a good citizen and a good student. If you really think you're good, I'll introduce you to someone who knows inner force. You can slowly fight with him. The 2 of them had only exchanged blows for a short while, but Qin Guang had already determined Xuelin's level. She was indeed much stronger than ordinary people, but that was only limited to the level of ordinary people. Perhaps she was stronger than him before he practiced the Qilin arm. Unfortunately, she had just provoked his Qilin arm. Once this brother's unique skill, overclock Qilin arm, was used, not to mention the strength, the vibration force could even send him flying. He was worried that he would encounter a martial arts fanatic, so he decisively decided to sell out second Uncle Wu. Inner force? You know inner force. Unexpectedly, Xuelin, who was sitting on the ground, fiercely pounced forward and grabbed his trouser leg. Hearing the word, inner force, her whole person was about to go crazy. Qin Guang forcefully pulled back. Rip, half of the trouser leg was gone. *CK. That's enough. I don't know inner force. This isn't called inner force. If I knew inner force, I could hit a bull in the air and send you flying. But I really know someone who knows inner force. Probably he's much stronger than me. Qin Guang said as he evaluated his and second Uncle Wen's combat power in his heart. Not to be boasting, he could probably live for about 5 seconds in the past. Now with the Qilin arm, he could probably live for about 10 seconds? Where is he? I want to be apprenticed. I want to learn. Xuelin shouted. Aren't you very unconvinced? What do you mean by apprenticing? Qin Guang stared. Lin gritted her teeth. I have heard the legend of inner force since many years ago. I want to learn it even in my dreams. But I can't find anyone who knows inner force at all. How can I dare to challenge someone who knows inner force? It's simply not on the same level. There's no one in the army who knows inner force? Qin Guang asked curiously. Lin shook her head. No, at least I have never seen it. Qin Guang was puzzled. Wen and second Uncle Wen, two living people, were always around him. How come there was no one in the army? This was unreasonable. Qin Guang asked again, that's impossible, right? Is it because your status is too low that you can't get in touch with these things? Lin pinched half of Qin Guang's trouser leg, stood up, and shook her head fiercely. My identity? Anyway, there is probably a deeper reason behind it. But I really want to learn. Save it, I still want to learn, but they won't teach me. Qin Guang shrugged. That time in the woods behind the dormitory, second Uncle Wen had rejected her without hesitation. However, Wen seemed to have mentioned that she probably had the intention of teaching him, right? No, she seemed to have said that if he wanted to learn, he had to marry her. Then the psychiatrist said that she had domestic violence tendencies. In addition, why do I have goosebumps when I think of the scene of entering the bridal chamber with that tomboy? Forget it, I don't care if I don't learn inner force, I haven't lived long enough. Qin Guang couldn't be bothered with Lin anymore and fled, leaving behind a young man with a lost expression on his face. Qin Guang didn't dare to return to the ward, but directly drove back to school. When he quietly opened the door, he saw his father stirring something, and there was a vaguely familiar smell coming from the ward. That's right, the long-lost vitality recovery soup, and it was the fortified version with 4 times the power. Mom's condition had stabilized, and Dad's scientific research spirit had finally been reignited. The old man wasn't feeling well, so he left first. This thing must not be drunk. Chapter 326. After all, being targeted by Lin brought some trouble to Qin Guang. But it wasn't too much trouble. Anyway, he refused to admit it. Lin knew that he was talking nonsense, but she couldn't do anything about it. Lin pestered him for 3 or 4 days, but she finally returned without success. He was driven away by Wu Tong, who came to help Qin Guang. Qin Guang was also starting to feel vexed about being pestered like this, so he called Wu Tong over. Watching Lin turn around and leave, Wu Tong turned around and punched Qin Guang. You finally stopped hiding from me. What are you hiding from? Qin Guang smiled hypocritically and scratched his head. Nothing. Bah. I heard from the shadow woman that your shoulder has recovered? So magical? Is there really such a magical medicine in the world? I don't believe it. You must have some secrets, but if you don't tell me, I won't bother to ask you. Wu Tong said as she threw herself on Qin Guang. Most of her body pressed on Qin Guang's shoulder, and at the same time she intimately rubbed Qin Guang's shoulders with her hands. After thinking through some things, her careless temperament made her movements more bold and unscrupulous. Feeling Wu Tong's ample chest on his shoulder and smelling the fragrance on her body, Qin Guang had no idea what perfume it was. At the same time, he was filled with hatred in his heart. This woman wasn't willing to let him have a good meal and was trying to seduce him on purpose. She must be torturing him on purpose, right? Sister, if you do this again, I will be suffocated. Qin Guang gritted his teeth and said, praying in his heart, can you at least give me some real benefits? Wu Tong put her face in front of him, smiling without saying a word. I know what you are thinking. I will give you 2 words, don't even think about it. At least before you recover, don't even think about it. Well, I knew it would be like this. Don't give me a chance. Otherwise, I will let you taste the resentment of a 10,000-year-old virgin. I will make you hover between life and death, grabbing the railing and tearing the bedsheets. I won't tease you anymore. I still have something to do at the station, so I'll take my leave first. On my way here, the woman in the shadow called me again to complain. She said that I kept avoiding her questions. She had asked her friend to bring a new medicine from America. It had no side effects at all. It was a kind of health supplement. How about this? I won't harm you. As your elder sister, I'll throw caution to the wind to help you. As long as you obediently accept the treatment and take that medicine. I'll personally give you a sweet taste and help you do that with my hands. How about it? But if you don't listen, don't even think about it. Think about it yourself. Wu Tong whispered these words into Qin Guang's ear. Her warm breath caressed his ear, tickling it. Seeing that Qin Guang was rooted to the spot, Wu Tong smiled like a victorious general and left. Looking at her back, Qin Guang's heart was so tangled. Could it be that I can only accept this cruel reality? For the sake of sweetness, should I throw away my integrity or not? Thinking about it carefully, it was nothing more than admitting that he had a weak kidney. Sooner or later, he would find the right opportunity to prove his masculinity. A moment of humiliation was nothing. He gritted his teeth and made a decision. Just as he was thinking about this, his phone rang. He picked it up and saw that it was a text from Wu Tong. She added, "Oh yes, I've seen the medicine that Uncle Qin made. It's also very nutritious. We can't let it go to waste." Qin Guang's vision darkened. Tang Ying's imported health supplements and his dad's fourfold recovery soup. How could he survive with both of them at the same time? The price was a little heavy. But for his sexual happiness, he felt that he could fight for it. Such a strong will collapsed instantly after seeing his dad's super nutritious soup. It was too frightening. Looking at the jar full of all kinds of expensive Chinese medicine, as well as the lamb ribs and mutton that had completely changed color after being soaked in the medicine, he felt that he was about to have a nosebleed just by smelling it. "Dad, you're really my biological father. Although I'm a sugar daddy, I'm still young. I don't consume that much energy. Can you not make me these things?" The father and son sat on the rooftop. Qin Guang looked at Qin Guoli bitterly. Qin Guoli patted his shoulder. "Let's not talk about these useless things. Didn't you go to see Jiang Yage a few days ago? I just saw the news on the internet. It said that Jiang Yage had a bad cold for the past 3 days and didn't step out of the house. Actually, I know that's all a lie. 3 days. A whole 3 days. Son, it's been hard on you." Qin Guoli looked at Qin Guang with tears in his eyes. "CK Dad, why are you looking at me like that? This is all King coincidence, okay? I just hid in the hotel for 3 days, okay? Your son is clearly standing right here, so why are you looking at me as if I'm a half-dead person?" Lin Fan thought to himself. "Look at your face. You've lost so much weight." Qin Guoli was the same as Feng Rong. No matter what state Qin Guang was in, he would always say that he was thin the moment they met. "How about this? I know you don't like to eat these things. I'll check on your condition later. If you don't show any signs of weakness, I won't make you these things anymore. But you have to eat this box." "Why?" "You have to give me a reason. Is it so hard to build trust between people? Your son's physique is strong. How can he be drained so easily?" Qin Guoli sighed again. "Do you know how much this box cost?" "How much?" "More than 200,000. Did you see this ginseng? Just this one is worth more than 80,000. There are 6 or 7 other types of Chinese medicine of similar value. If they go to waste like this, won't my heart bleed? My biological dad. This is crazy. Completely crazy." Qin Guang was in a bad mood. Qin Guoli sighed. "I can't help it. I had to ask a big favor to get this prescription. They said that it would only be effective if we use such a good medicine. They didn't earn any money from me. I asked someone else to find these herbs all over the country. None of them are fake. As a father, how can I not know my son's suffering? I didn't pay a single cent for the money you gave me to pay the court. Your mother's illness doesn't need so much money anyway. Since it's just sitting there, I might as well spend more money to make up for it. It's taken from the people and used for the people. This is also an investment that can help you better serve your customers. But then again, how are you going to explain to Sun Xiaoxuan in your current situation? I think she's not bad. It's just your situation." Qin Guang's eyes widened. He looked at his father in a daze. He didn't expect his father to think so much in secret. He was really worried about his son. "But then again, I'd rather you don't worry about this. Maybe I can live a little easier." In the end, he didn't have the courage to finish the 200,000 tonic soup on the spot. He just said that he would use it as a midnight snack. After sitting in the ward for another hour, Qin Guang decided to slip away. His heart was hanging by a thread as he held this thing in his hand. If he accidentally knocked it over, the 200,000 would go to waste. Thinking about it made his heart bleed. Chapter 327. At first he refused to eat it, but in the end he still couldn't bear to let the 200,000 yuan go to waste. "Forget it, my head is very hard, I won't die so easily with some nourishment. Anyway, I told my dad that this will be the last time, I really can't waste it. Since I lied, I have to admit it with tears in my eyes." Squatting by the corner of the corridor, Qin Guang gulped down mouthful after mouthful of the indescribable taste. He didn't even waste the soup. 200,000 yuan. Working for someone? If I'm not a billionaire now, I'll be pissed to death by you. Come to think of it, it's not wrong to follow my dad's train of thought. If Jiang Yage really provided for me, Up until now, the money I've given him is almost 10 million yuan, so spending 200,000 yuan to improve his business is understandable. Anyway, as long as the customer is satisfied, this business can continue, right? Dad, you really know how to run a business. Burping, Qin Guang got up, but just as he turned the corner, he was stunned. A woman was standing there with her hands on her waist, as if she had been waiting for him for a long time. It was Tang Ying. At this time, she was holding a brown glass bottle of unknown origin, looking at him with a devilish smile. Young man, come and try the medicine in sister's hand? Wait a minute. Qin Guang let out a burp. Tang Ying looked at the lunchbox in his hand. Just in time, this medicine is for begging, you can give it to me. With that, she pounced on Qin Guang, pried open his mouth and stuffed a pill into his mouth. It's not that Qin Guang can't resist, but because his arm just became a Qilin arm a few days ago, he knows he's too strong and he's afraid of accidentally hurting her. Moreover, Tang Ying holding the bottle in her hand is just a pretense. In fact, she already has a pill in her palm, waiting for the moment when Qin Guang isn't paying attention so she can stuff it in his mouth. Hey! Feeling something being tossed into his mouth, Qin Guang took a step back and yelled out in pain. Gulp. The pill went down his stomach. Seeing that her plan had succeeded, Tang Ying happily clapped her hands and shoved the bottle into Qin Guang's hands. It's done. You brat, you are also dishonest. You forced me to use force. Why are you so difficult to deal with? Accept your fate. This medicine won't kill you. It has been popular abroad for more than half a year. It's a pure plant extract with no additives and no side effects. It costs a few $100s a bottle. Just treat it as a gift from me. You'll have to buy it yourself next time. Qin Guang put on a long face. Big sis, it's not like that. What was in the box in my hand wasn't a normal bento, it was a recipe that my dad found from who knows where. He said that it was 4 times stronger than the recovery soup last time. 200,000 per jar. I just gritted my teeth and drank such a big pot of soup, and now you're giving me this medicine. I'm a little flustered. Tang Ying was also stunned. A pot of soup that costs 200,000 renminbi? Qin Guang nodded. One ginseng inside costs 80,000. Oh my god. Even if it's a tonic, it can't be like this. Tang Ying was shocked. Phew. Spit it out for me. Qin Guang shook his head. No. It's 200,000 renminbi. I can't spit it out no matter what. Something bad will happen if you make it up. The tonic I made for you is also very powerful. Tang Ying panicked. Qin Guang still shook his head like a rattled drum. It's okay. My body is made of iron. I can handle it. Tang Ying saw that he had made up his mind and could only be anxious. She gritted her teeth and said, You can't leave tonight. What? Go to my dormitory? How can I let you go with your condition? It's better to stay in the hospital. If anything happens, you can be saved in time. My roommate went home today. You can sleep on my bed and I'll sleep on my roommate's bed. Qin Guang pondered. That's fine. Actually, I'm a little guilty. In the middle of the night, something did happen to Qin Guang, and it was not a small matter. In the middle of the night, he began to feel hot all over. A large pot of nourishing soup made of expensive Chinese medicinal herbs in the stomach, coupled with the nourishing health products from abroad, the taste was really too sour and refreshing. But this heat was different from the heat of a fever. It came from inside his body, and it was reflected in a certain part of his body. At first, Qin Guang gritted his teeth and held on. But later he began to groan subconsciously. His mind was clear, but a certain part of his body was swollen like it was about to explode. Tang Ying did not sleep well to begin with. When she heard Qin Guang tossing and turning on the bed and even heard him groaning, she woke up in shock. She turned on the light and rushed to his bedside to ask him if he was feeling uncomfortable. At first, Qin Guang did not want to admit it. But Tang Ying had the heart of a doctor, and almost wanted to call someone to send him to the emergency room at the last minute. Only then did Qin Guang reluctantly admit it. It was not a stomachache nor was it dizzy. It was just that a certain part of his body was so tenacious that it felt like it was about to explode. Even now, Qin Guang felt strange about what happened next. A man and a woman were sitting together in the doctor's dormitory watching movies. Qin Guang had found the goods himself. He had 35 tons of dry food in his online drive, so there was no need to ask an experienced driver for help. About 20 minutes later, the first wave was over. At first, Tang Ying was too embarrassed to watch. But later she made up her mind. If something really happened to Qin Guang today, the health tonic she had stuffed into his mouth might be the straw that broke the camel's back. Of course, she was not someone who was easy to deal with. It was not the first time she and Wu Tong had watched these movies together. In the end, Tang Ying could only put on the attitude of a doctor and pulled a chair over to Qin Guang's side. It was so much so that she even put on a euphemistic excuse to check if there were any signs of edema or congestion. When the guy finally let out a comfortable moan, rolled his eyes and subconsciously leaned his head on her shoulder, Tang Ying did not even bother to hide. At this time she had already thought it through. I'm a doctor anyway. It's only right and proper. About 40 minutes later she was almost gnashing her teeth with hatred for what she had just said. The first release was not a real release at all. It was the beginning of the nightmare for the two of them. This guy's recovery speed was faster than expected. Of course, it could also be that the tonic and imported medicine were too powerful. The same move was fresh the first time, but the second time it became torture. But Qin Guang still relied on the unprecedentedly powerful Kirin arm to stimulate his superhuman potential. Overclocking vibration, easy to use, no explanation needed. However, the third time came. No matter what he did, it was useless. He looked like he was Zhao Ritian. Qin Guang was at his wit's end. He turned his head and looked at Tang Ying. Sister Tang Ying, I'm at my wit's end. Please save me or I'm going to explode. Tang Ying's heart was filled with regret. If she had known that something was wrong, she would have asked Wu Tong to come here. After all, wasn't she in a hurry to deliver herself to him? Although I'm a doctor, I don't have the courage to be so straightforward. Chapter 328. Tears welled up in Tang Ying's eyes. Somehow, the two of them had ended up like this. Although she didn't hate him, perhaps she still had that little bit of extra emotion after the embarrassing incident at her house. But ever since she found out about Wu Tong's feelings for him, although Tang Ying's desire to help him treat his kidney deficiency hadn't changed, that extra emotion had long been quietly erased. But today it had suddenly turned out like this. Without any precaution, it had become like this. Tang Ying facepalmed. How could I face Wu Tong? But Qin Guang's condition was indeed very serious, and it had something to do with the medicine she had fed him. She couldn't ignore it. In the end, the doctor's emotions prevailed. Tang Ying gritted her teeth. How about I use my hands to stimulate you? Maybe it'll work? Don't even think about eating me. I won't agree to it. Qin Guang shook his head like a raging pendulum. Impossible, impossible. Sister Tang Ying, you're so much older than me. How could I be interested in you? I didn't even take advantage of you last time when you were so drunk. Tang Ying sucked in a breath of cold air. She should be happy with this guy's words, but why did it sound so wrong? You rascal. What do you mean? Do you think I'm ugly? That I've let you down? That's embarrassing, isn't it? Qin Guang hurriedly explained, No. I'm just afraid that you'll have a knot in your heart. Just treat me as a pitiful patient. Tang Ying rolled her eyes. I've always treated you as a patient. Don't let your imagination run wild. The third time. Thankfully there wasn't a fourth time. Tang Ying felt like her hands were about to break. Qin Guang applied some lotion on his hands, or else he would really feel like he was about to burst into flames. That night, Qin Guang slept very well. Although he had used up a lot of energy last night, he managed to survive the nourishing soup and her unlucky American meatballs. He only felt a little sore in his back, but it wasn't a big deal. Tang Ying was miserable. She tossed and turned on the bed, unable to fall asleep. She rubbed her hands until they were almost rotten. She subconsciously smelled the scent. She was really on the verge of breaking down. He felt that he had been tricked by this father and son duo. You guys made use of my sympathy and put on a good show for me. His time was short? This is called kidney deficiency? If he was weak, then there was no one in the world who wasn't. An entire half an hour passed, half an hour. My arms are breaking from exhaustion. I won't even be able to hold my chopsticks properly tomorrow. Early the next morning, Tang Ying glared at Qin Guang with a red face and dark eyes. Swear to God that you won't tell anyone about this. Heaven knows, earth knows, I know. Wu Tong can't tell either. Qin Guang stretched out 2 fingers and pointed to the sky. I swear. I will definitely not tell anyone about this. If I go against this, may I be struck by lightning and not. Tang Ying covered his mouth and said, all right, don't say things like, I'll die a horrible death. If you really have a bad tongue and let it slip, I'll just lose face. God is watching over me, so there's no need to swear such a heavy oath over such a small matter. Now you should believe that I don't have kidney deficiency, right? Qin Guang chuckled and moved his face closer to Tang Ying. Looking at the usually dignified doctor blushing shyly, he couldn't help but feel indescribably pleased. Tang Ying rolled her eyes at him. All right, I'll be damned if I believe you. Get lost. I don't want to see you. Keep this medicine for yourself and take it in a few days. It's a few $100, don't waste it. Just treat it as a tonic. Get lost. Qin Guang shrank his neck and ran away. Although last night's incident was a scam, he couldn't deny that he felt a little sour and refreshed. Of course, the happiest thing was that he could finally regain his manhood in front of Tang Ying, a doctor who always thought that he had kidney deficiency. Let's see if you still dare to call me weak in the future. However, there was something else that slightly troubled him. He really couldn't tell Wu Tong about it. He wasn't stupid. Returning to the dormitory alone, he sat in the empty room and played a few rounds of Dota. Then he stood by the window and looked around. The huge dormitory was empty. Originally, there were people coming and going in the enclosed courtyard, but now there were only a few sparrows playing in the scorching summer heat. Sighing, Qin Guang sat back in front of the chair and yelled, "I'm so bored." He could actually hear the echo. Without anyone around him, it was as if the whole world had become empty. Suddenly, it was summer vacation, all of his classmates had left, and his mom wouldn't be discharged for another 10 days or so. These days, Azure hadn't done anything at all. After all, he had just dealt with the super-powerful punishment realm and the Qilin Arm realm, and even the Heavenly Holy Grail had to take a break. The makeup exam would only start next semester, so it wasn't time for him to study at all. He had 180 million in his pocket, and he didn't have the fighting spirit to go online. Azure had set her eyes on this 180 million, and it could go down the drain at any time, but this unreasonable woman wouldn't let him do anything. Thus, Qin Guang had lost interest in learning how to do business. In any case, even if he mastered it, he wouldn't be able to use it. All of a sudden, it felt like he was so bored that his balls were aching. After playing several rounds in a row, he didn't meet Jiang Luhua again, and he crushed his opponents without any suspense. The aftereffects seemed to be gradually alleviating, but it was still a little strenuous, and after a long time he still felt nauseous. Now he couldn't play Dota anymore and he was completely at a loss. Who would have thought that I, the Grand Lord Guang, would also have such a day when I don't even have someone to talk to? What should I do to pass the time? Unconsciously, Qin Guang opened his Weibo on the computer, and before he knew it, he had gained hundreds of followers and hundreds of replies. It had been almost 5 months since he last updated his Weibo. Obviously, he didn't have the potential to become an internet celebrity. He had also received a lot of private messages, most of which weren't pleasant to listen to. Most of them were from Jiang Ye's diehard fans, but of course, there were also haters pretending to be fans. A disdainful sneer appeared on Qin Guang's lips. "You bunch of pitiful bugs, this elder brother and your goddess are very familiar with each other, okay? How could a big shot like this elder brother be angered by the private messages and replies of weak scum like you? Don't King make a fuss, okay?" 10 minutes later, he silently pressed the button to close the replies, delete his most recent Weibo post, and set his private messages to reject strangers. Fortunately, Lord Guang didn't have heart disease, otherwise he would have been angered to death. What AF King dog? Could he still happily use Weibo? No matter how thick-skinned this elder brother was, he wouldn't be able to withstand these people's endless abuse. Thanks to the hundreds of new replies and private messages, Qin Guang did a good job of revising his Chinese language and felt the profoundness of Chinese literature. In the private messages he saw a message from Jiang Ye. It was probably because she finally realized that she had replied to Qin Guang's message. It was supposed to be a tease between the two of them, but instead, it caused some of her irrational and crazy fans to keep scolding Qin Guang. "I'm sorry, I was clearly joking with you. I didn't expect those people to be like this. I'm also very troubled. But it seems like you don't use Weibo much, so you might not have seen it. If you see it, you can send me a WeChat message to scold me. I love you." Qin Guang clutched his chest again. He was disgusted by Jiang Ye's words and felt a little suffocated. He recalled his experience at Disneyland with these two people again. He couldn't bear to look back on the past, leaving him with scars all over his body. It really had been a long time since he opened WeChat. He opened it to see what these two people were talking about. Qin Guang felt that a person like him was destined to not have many friends. He didn't even chat on WeChat, so how could he be close to his sister? Chapter 329. When he opened it, it was indeed all useless nonsense. Jiang Ye was still using the same method, adding some useless but self-deprecating jokes to her selfies. This woman's Photoshop skills were getting better and better, and her photography skills were also improving. In addition to her selfies, there were also many photos of her traveling around the world. The photos were beautiful and they were even post-processed. Even though Qin Guang was not interested in her photos, he still felt that the landscape photos she took were quite beautiful. He was secretly envious of her. He did not have the talent to be a photographer, but this woman almost made a name for herself. In the past he used to use Lin Jingwei's DSLR for a while. Later he felt that the composition, lighting, lenses, and all kinds of special effects had to be added in order to take beautiful photos. It was too troublesome and he broke down. Other people had sent dozens of photos, and it seemed that it was a little too much not to reply. Qin Guang replied casually, "The scale is too small, I'm not even interested in replying. My phone's memory card is very precious, please only send large-scale photos." In addition, Jin Shirue said something that made him a little more concerned. Deng Xiaojiang, the Big Beard's Tears for a Nation, was finally going to be released. Filming a movie was also quite troublesome. From filming to post-production to publicity to the actual release, there were a lot of things waiting for people to do. When Qin Guang sneaked into the crew to shoot that scene, they had actually already shot the second half of the scene. At the same time, the post-production had been following up. Coupled with his relationship with Big Beard Deng as well as the accurate grasp of the Bureau's censorship policy, this rather heavy historical blockbuster could be released in the summer. Originally, Qin Guang did not like to go to the movies. After all, as an old bachelor, it was easy to get hurt in that kind of place. But this time he decided to go and he had to watch the first scene. The reason was very simple, he was going to appear on screen. It was rare to have a few opportunities to act cool in life. How could he let go of such a good opportunity? When the time came, if he was accidentally recognized by the beautiful women coming out of the cinema, they would point at him and scream, "Look! This was the super handsome deputy general." Then he shook his head. Yes, you didn't see wrongly. The silver-armored deputy general whose acting skills were off the charts and who was domineering and cool was me. Then, he would be able to hold a girl in one arm and do some shameful things in a nearby hotel. Just thinking about it made him look forward to it. It was a pity that Jin Shirue and Jiang Yage would be attending the premiere in Beijing. The two of them even invited him in private, saying that they had prepared a VIP box ticket for him. In fact, he would be sitting behind the two women. Qin Guang was a little tempted, but he decided against it. It was too unnecessary to fly from the 5 capitals to the Yenjing. He had sold the Patek Philippe that the two of them had given him for money. Even now, he had a knot in his heart and felt that he had let them down. Previously he was so poor that he had no choice but to sell it. He also needed money to save his life, so he didn't think too much about it. Now that he had become someone who did not lack money, when he thought about this matter, he felt a little ashamed to raise his head. What if the two of them excitedly asked how the watch felt and whether the time was accurate? How should he answer? Did he sell it? Or should he buy it back? Forget it, he had already sold it to them. They helped him a lot because of Lin Jingwei. How could he have the face to buy it back? Therefore, in fact, Qin Guang's thoughts about Jiang Yage and Jin Shirue were to avoid them for the time being. Although it was good to be a celebrity, if he had too much contact with them, his life might be ruined by the paparazzi. He didn't want to be famous for such a meaningless thing. Qin Guang's WeChat reply to Jin Shirue was much gentler. He told her not to just focus on work and to pay more attention to rest. After scrolling through Weibo and replying to WeChat, he began to feel bored again. Leaning against the back of the chair, Qin Guang's mind wandered. What should I do next? Right, since I have nothing to do anyway, why don't I think about how to make a second statue in the World in the Cup? After some careful calculations, he had experienced the World in the Cup 6 times. On average, 3 times a month and once every 10 days. The first World in the Cup was when he learned English in the Sea of Time. There was no hope of making the Sea of Time perfect and erecting a statue. The second Dota Hell training seemed to be something he could think about. The Racing God training ground was already perfect. Sharpening pencils seemed to be something he could do. Let's not talk about the unlucky incident of the punishment realm. The world of Kirin arms? Alright, that was even more unlucky. Brother Ming was the best at sharpening brass fireworks in the world? Others would only think of him as an idiot. When the time came, would the statue be made of brass fireworks or my pair of Kirin arms? Just thinking about it made him feel hopeless. So, it seemed like he could focus on Dota and sharpening pencils? He felt like he could do both. Anyway, he didn't lack money now. It wouldn't be too much for him to raise a few million to set up a club and form a team. Lioli wouldn't fight him to the death, right? The more he thought about it, the more he felt that this idea was feasible. Previously, he might not have had much hope when he could only last 2 matches, but now he could probably last up to 4. Even if he participated in the International Invitational Tournament and reached the finals, he could at most play a set of best-of-5 matches. When that time came, he could go on a winning streak and at most play 5 matches in the final set of best-of-5 matches. It wasn't impossible. But the teammate couldn't be too strong. He had to give people the impression that he was a god with 4 legs. Otherwise, he wouldn't be recognized as the best in the world. Dota and LOL were both team games. He had to make the others have a clear gap with him. Otherwise, victory would only be attributed to the team. That's right. It was decided just like that. But forming a team wasn't something that could be done in a short period of time. He had to think of a way to gather a group of people. How about this? He would first try to fight his way to the top of the Chinese server's ladder. Then he would find a few good players in the wild or old retired players. They would be around the level of 2nd or 3rd tier players. When that time came, he would have the money and the people. He would be able to clinch an international championship in one go. He didn't have to sit firmly on the throne of the strongest forever. As long as he was recognized by the world at that moment, he would be able to trigger the conditions for completing the world in a cup. That wasn't right. Professional competitions were very professional now. If he wanted to register, he would have to register first. Forget it. He wouldn't form a new team. He would just purchase a 2nd tier or 3rd tier noob team and help him register his name as a substitute. Then he would kick the players who played well and keep the noobs. No, it had to be the kind of noobs who were famous enough among the professional players. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to highlight his strength. Those who weren't noobs enough or weren't famous enough, he would kick them all. It didn't matter if they were disbanded after the competition. He just wanted to shine for a while. Then he would start looking for an unlucky team to purchase from now on. Chapter 330. After thinking about it for a while, he felt that this matter was troublesome. Although he played this game, he was not a member of the esports circle. He was just a typical fan, so he did not know much about these things. Forget it, I'll let this matter hang in my mind for now. As for now, Qin Guang decided that he wanted to be an internet celebrity. That's right, it would be much easier to prove that he was the best sharpener in the world. Anyway, he would not have any competitors. He would first record a pencil sharpening video and upload it online to at least accumulate some popularity. Then he would find a chance to contact the Guinness World Records. But then again, contacting Guinness was also a troublesome matter. He suddenly felt that he needed a capable person to help him take care of these things. As the owner of the heavenly Holy Grail, he could not waste his limited life on these chores, right? He could not help but think of Lu Fei. When he was in Xiangjiang, Lu Fei took care of everything. He lived a very relaxed and happy life. He did not need to care about anything else and only needed to race. With someone to help him take care of all these chores, he could focus on his own strengths. How comfortable was that? He had not understood the mystery before, but now he knew that he was lacking people. Now that he was considered half a nouveau riche, he needed a useful accessory. Although Lu Fei was a talent, with her family's status, it was already very kind of her to help him once. How could he trouble her again? Besides, she had helped him earn this bit of wealth. In her eyes it was nothing. She should be the one hiring him. Forget it, it was really difficult to find a trustworthy and outstanding person who could take care of all aspects. This matter was also troublesome. He would put it aside for now. Old man should first change his Weibo name to Almighty Superman and become an internet celebrity first. To do a good job, one must first sharpen his tools. Before officially starting filming, Qin Guang sent a WeChat message to Jin Jiang and Lu Fei, telling them that he would be updating a video on his Weibo later and asking them to help repost it. Anyway, he would not pay any advertising fees. From now on, he would embark on the path of being an internet celebrity. With Jin Jiang and Lu Fei's reposting, he would be going against the heavens. Anyway, he wasn't short of money. If necessary, he could buy a few million zombie fans and get them to post millions of fake comments. Then all the other big verses would have to kneel down in a matter of minutes. In that case, he would first delete anything that might expose his personal information on Weibo, lest he was exposed. It was enough to be a quiet, handsome man on the internet. There was no need to ruin his real life. After he was done, Qin Guang decisively took out the V-shaped Special Agent Team flexible mask that he had used quite well in Xiangjiang from the wardrobe and put it on. Get to work. No, wait, let's go to the snack bar on the pedestrian street and clean out their pencils first. Half an hour later, he uploaded a video with extremely low filming skills, but the content was enough to blind countless people. He named it the best pencil sharpener in history. In this 8-minute video, he demonstrated his terrifying pencil sharpening skills. Peeling a rose in 5 seconds was a beginner's skill. Carving out a peony in 3 seconds could barely be considered a pass. The real supreme realm was to carve out 10 completely different well-known statues in 2 seconds. The Statue of Liberty, the Redeemer in Rio de Janeiro, Egypt's Sphinx, Easter Island's Moa, David, the Olmec's Big Head, Motherland Calling, the Thinker, the Little Danish Mermaid, and the Little Boy Who Peed Everywhere. That's right, in 1 second, 10 statues, lifelike, perfect original miniature wood carvings. Qin Guang couldn't have done it in the past. Thanks to the Kirin arm, after familiarizing himself with the ultra-high-frequency vibration, he integrated it into his pencil sharpening skills, which made his skills sublimate again. At the end of the video he took a close-up shot of each statue, which would definitely shock countless people. Once the video was sent out he didn't care anymore. Anyway, the 2 girls would not give him face. After he was done with this, he finally plucked up the courage to pick up physical chemistry and read it for more than half an hour. Thanks to Sun Xiaoxuan's courseware, otherwise this course would really kill him. It was really too hard to learn, too depressing. Finally he finished reading a big chapter. Even with the help of the courseware he was still dizzy. Qin Guang threw the book away and decided to read online literature to recover some of his blood. Oh, the poor author who chased after him some time ago finally made it to the shelves. Poor, too poor. 18,000 readers liked it, and the average subscription was only about 700, which meant that there were about 17,300 people reading pirated versions. This poor guy howled every day that he had to support his family and couldn't go on living. Young man, you really think too much of human nature. What's the use of howling about being poor? Who would care about you? In this day and age, what people think about is free reading. Isn't it stupid not to read? Everyone knows that authors are robots. They don't need to eat to write a book, especially a poor author like you. Not only are you a robot, but you're also a robot dog. You don't need to be fed. If you want to live, you have to honestly write 10,000 words a day. Do you think that insisting on writing 10,000 words a day will move them? How many people do you think will understand how tiring it is to write all day? Stop howling here. You're disturbing my free meal mood. If you're not happy, come and scold me in your book review section. I'm giving you face by reading your book, okay? I'm giving you face, can you use it to soak in soup and eat steamed buns? You even dare to collect money, you're such a drug dealer. Qin Guang scanned the book review section and found out that this poor fellow actually dared to do something like defending against DB. He decisively scolded him. Serves him right. Other people in the book review section said that 17,000 people were worried that you would be a eunuch. They were waiting for you to finish writing before coming back to fix it. You defending against DB is ruining our mood and hurting our faces. These scums. In the end, Qin Guang couldn't help but curse in his heart. When the old man was at his poorest, he still insisted on supporting the original book, okay? $10 a month was nothing. This poor fellow was acting again, saying that he was still writing at 5 or 6 in the morning. Whether you believe it or not, I don't believe it. I don't believe that you have cervical spondylosis, insomnia, obsessive-compulsive disorder, or depression. But I don't lack money. Therefore, Qin Guang happily slapped out the Alliance Leader title. He didn't give the poor fellow, who boasted that he had the world's strongest fancy bootlicking skills, any chance to get close to him. He closed the book review section and didn't join his fan group. He hid his achievements and fame, and was the proudest of pretending to be pretentious. Then he started reading happily. To be honest, although this silly guy was a bit of a loser, he was quite happy to read. He thought that he would just muddle through the day. Around 5 o'clock in the afternoon, he suddenly received a call from Zhu Jifa. That's right, it was President Zhu who lent his poor Rena car to Qin Guang and spent 20,000 yuan to repair it. He brought his little beautiful secretary to Wujing and was now rushing to the city hospital. He planned to visit Qin Guang's mother first and ask him to eat together later. Qin Guang hadn't seen his old friend for a long time. Thank God, at least someone came to save his boring life. Therefore he quickly drove to the city. Qin Guang also planned to take the opportunity to let Zhu Jifa's little beautiful secretary drive the Rena back to his hometown. Now that he wasn't lacking money, he shouldn't treat himself badly. To improve his life he should start by changing cars. At this time, Qin Guang still didn't know that after Jiang Yage and Jin Shiriwei reposted his Weibo, the internet was in an uproar. Chapter 331. Jin Shiriwei and Jiang Yage each had tens of millions of Weibo fans, and each Weibo post had at least tens of thousands of reposts and tens of thousands of replies. But although the two women usually ate and lived together, their spontaneous Weibo content was always different. Only this time, the two of them reposted the same video almost at the same time, and each sent an irreconcilable accompanying text, which was instantly pushed to countless fans' Weibo. Jin Shirue, this is my idol. I've never seen anyone sharpening a pencil like this. Everyone quickly go and take a look. Please repost, please spread. Jiang Yage. At first, when he asked me to repost this Weibo post, I refused until I watched the video first. Just now, my assistant asked me why I was kneeling on the ground playing with my phone, and now she is kneeling beside me. Wait, why is Sister Shirue kneeling out of the room? The two different accompanying texts, coupled with Chen Guang's dazzling pencil sharpening skills, the combination of the two instantly produced a chemical reaction, and the final result was an instant explosion. But there was something strange. Why was there nothing under this all-around Superman's Weibo? There was no verification, and even the replies were closed. The entire Weibo only had this video like a zombie account that was temporarily registered. But Jin Shirue and Jiang Yage both paid attention to this zombie account at the same time. Who was this mysterious guy? After the instant explosion, more and more possibilities were speculated in the hearts of the people, causing Qin Guang's video to sweep the internet in an extremely short period of time. More people spontaneously joined the discussion. At first, it was because of the attention attracted by Jin Shirue and Jiang Yage's repost, but gradually, people were divided into two factions. One faction thought that it was impossible and it was definitely special effects, while the other faction thought that the video was completely real, and this all-around Superman guy could really do it. Soon, the technical party among the folk experts jumped out, and from a professional point of view, they analyzed Qin Guang's video frame by frame, verifying the second faction's view. The video was completely real. Even if it looked like a movie, it was real. The technical party came to a conclusion, but it didn't stop the debate. More people jumped out, accusing the technical party of boasting that they were folk experts, but in fact they were paid 50 cents. This infuriated the technocrats and another wave of debate broke out. But no matter what, if there was a debate there would be a topic, and if there was a topic there would naturally be popularity. This time it was even more incredible. More and more people spontaneously joined the repost party and became free water users. At first, these topics stayed under Jin Jiang's Weibo, but gradually, other big accounts joined in the ranks of reposting and commenting on the video. Perhaps they were doing this for the sake of the two young big shots on their left and right hands, or perhaps Qin Guang's video really got them excited. These internet celebrities also had their own fans. Under these people's Weibo posts, there were countless comments and reposts. There were also discussions among friends on Weibo, which was not a big V but a small circle. As a result, Qin Guang's video went viral. It really went viral. Like a wildfire, it swept through the entire Weibo circle in just over 2 hours. Life was so unpredictable. How could Qin Guang have thought that his sudden idea would cause such a sensation on the internet? The birth of an internet celebrity had a lot of coincidences in it. Jin Jiang's repost was the trigger, and the content of the video was the skeleton that supported it to become popular. The coincidences and accidents in the instant that it became popular became its wings. Perhaps it was because his V-shaped special agent mask added a lot of mystery to the video, and the complete closure of the comments made him seem even more unique. Or perhaps it was because of the debate between the technical party and the skeptic party that made the video even more popular. It was probably very difficult to find a reason. In short, his video went viral. It completely went viral in just over 2 hours. And it was obvious that it would continue to go viral. Because the topic of the strongest pencil sharpener in history directly broke into Weibo's hot search list at lightning speed, and began to spontaneously appear in front of more people. It could be foreseen that in the next 2 days, unless another hot topic that was enough to attract everyone's attention popped up, no one could stop this video from being constantly reposted and spread. From the time Qin Guang uploaded the video to the time he arrived at Wujing City Hospital, the first video he uploaded under the name Almighty Superman went from being unknown to being famous all over the country. His Weibo fans also shot up from the initial 1,000 or so like a rocket. 5,000, 10,000, 50,000, 100,000, 200,000. When he arrived outside his mother's ward, the number of Almighty Superman's fans had forcibly exceeded 500,000, and it was still rising. At this level, he could really achieve the idea that he had by chance but had not been able to put into practice. 500,000 followers, and all of them were living people. He could indeed accept advertisements. This was something that many operating accounts might not be able to do even if they worked for half a year. But he only used 2 hours and he didn't even realize it. Jin Shirue and Jiang Yage were also quite busy. After helping Qin Guang forward the video, they went to work. Otherwise they would have called Qin Guang. When he arrived at the ward, Zhu Jifa had already chatted with Chen Guoli and Feng Rong for about 10 minutes. Chen Guoli's work at Old Zhou's hot pot restaurant in the county had been taken over by Zhu Jifa's retired father. The two families were old friends. When Zhu Jifa's family's printing factory was in trouble in the early years, the Chen family had helped a lot. Zhu Jifa was basically equivalent to the nephew of Chen Guoli and his parents. Seeing that Qin Guang had come, Zhu Jifa put on the attitude of a big brother. Don't you know that you should spend more time with Uncle Qin and Aunt Feng? Why are you still in school when the school is on holiday? Qin Guang rolled his eyes. He thought to himself, what do you know? I've been working like a dog recently. I only have a little rest these 2 days, okay? Qin Guoli patted Zhu Jifa. Xiao Fa, don't scold Xiao Guang. He's been worrying so much about us that his body is about to collapse. You two brothers, when you get back, save whatever nourishing things you can for him. Wait, Dad, what you said doesn't sound right to me. Qin Guang was too lazy to respond to Zhu Jifa. This bastard was always acting like a big brother just because he was 3 years older than him. Boss Zhu, you're so busy every day. Why did you come to the 5 capital? Can you not call me Boss Zhu? Zhu Jifa's balls were hurting. He turned to the little beautiful secretary beside him and said, Hu Ling, I've told you many times not to call me Boss Zhu. Now this guy has something on you, right? The two brothers hadn't seen each other for a long time, and it was quite lively as they bantered with each other. Chapter 332. When it was time to eat, he originally planned to ask Chen Guoli to go out to eat together. However, the old man said that he could not leave this place, so he did not want to go with the youngsters and let them make their own arrangements. By the way, what are you doing here this time? How much does it cost to get the whole car? It's quite comfortable to sit here. Qin Guang sat in the passenger seat of Zhu Jifa's BMW 525 and asked casually. Zhu Jifa was not very familiar with the road conditions in Wujing. He was very nervous when he drove, afraid that he would violate the rules. He was even more afraid that the roads in Wujing were dominated by taxis. If he were to slip and fall, it would be very distressing. He was not in the mood to explain to Qin Guang at all. He stared straight ahead. Don't ask about adult matters. Don't disturb me while I'm driving. Qin Guang was instantly enraged. *CK. What do you mean adult matters? Although I'm a university student who has not graduated, I already have a net worth of 200 million. If you piss me off, I'll buy your factory and let you watch the gate. Perhaps he realized that his words might be too aggressive, so Zhu Jifa added, By the way, I haven't asked Auntie Feng how much this surgery will cost. I heard that a kidney transplant will cost about 5 to 600,000, right? I really couldn't help much before. The factory needs to support people and there isn't much cash available. Fortunately, your family found a way to borrow money, but it's not good to always owe others. After I settle this matter in less than half a year, I'll help you repay the money first. You're going to graduate soon, so don't go to the sports car. Study hard and don't fail too many subjects. If you fail too many subjects, you won't even be able to get your graduation certificate. He said such a long paragraph in one breath. He was so nervous that cold sweat was coming out of his temples. He was really focused while driving. Qin Guang's anger immediately dissipated. He did not expect Zhu Jifa to pay for the transplant. He knew his difficulties. Don't be fooled by the fact that he was tinkering with a printing factory. In fact, it was not easy to run a business these days. There were so many people, big and small, and the profits of the printing industry were already very low. A large factory could only move a few tens of thousands of working capital. However, the first thing he wanted to do now was to help him pay off the debt of 5 or 600,000 yuan after he earned the money. Qin Guang was touched. Everyone knew that if it was a loan of 5 or 600,000 yuan, it would take an ordinary family a year or two to repay it. This trader's son was a good person, but his mouth was cheap. Qin Guang knew that Zhu Jifa had always been like this, but he couldn't stand his big brother attitude. Don't talk so much. Look at how nervous you are. Why don't you move aside and let me drive? The racing god of this generation, the invincible man that everyone looks up to, is personally driving for you. Are you honored? Zhu Jifa ignored Qin Guang. Shut up. It's not enough that you drove my Rena to that state and now you want to harm my BMW 5? Don't even think about it. I'll King kill you if I die. It's going to cost more than 400,000 yuan. I bought this car with a mortgage loan to keep up appearances. So far I have 0 failures. Don't let me be the first. Alright. Just focus on driving. Qin Guang rolled his eyes. He was on the verge of collapsing from Su Tao's actions. The three of them drove around for about 10 minutes. Zhu Jifa first parked the car in the parking lot of the chain hotel where he stayed, then invited them to sit in the Sichuan restaurant next door. Seeing that he wasn't interested in talking about why he came to Wujing, Qin Guang didn't ask any more. He was afraid that this traitor would talk about adult matters again. If that happened, he wouldn't be able to control his restless arm and give him a slap in the face. Qin Guang's attention shifted to the other side. When they were waiting for the dishes to be served, Hu Ling went to the toilet. She pulled Zhu Jifa's shoulder and smiled wickedly. "The two of you have an affair. Don't talk nonsense." Zhu Jifa shook his head violently. "When you parked the car at the hotel just now," Hu Ling said that she went upstairs to put her bag. "The room card was taken out of your pocket and given to her. The two of you only got one room." Qin Guang continued to smile wickedly. Zhu Jifa gasped and started to panic. *CK. Keep this matter to yourself. If Lu Xiaohong finds out, I'm dead meat. Qin Guang looked at his panicking face and felt pity for him. "You're quite bold. You have Lu Xiaohong at home, and you still dare to keep a little secretary by your side. Aren't you afraid that something will happen?" Zhu Jifa sighed. "Of course I'm afraid. That's why I asked Hu Ling to wait on the road in the name of a business trip 2 days earlier. I only picked her up today." "Are you tired of living?" Qin Guang asked. Zhu Jifa nodded, then shook his head. "Isn't it because I'm tired of living that I need someone to share my burden? Otherwise, I'm going to suffer from depression." Qin Guang understood his feelings. Lu Xiaohong was famous for being unreasonable. She had a bad temper and was a standard shrew. She looked rough and unlikable, but her father was the county's Industry and Commerce Bureau chief. He just had to fall in love with Zhu Jifa, who was 3 years younger than him. Even though the poor Xiao Zhu was disgusted, he still pinched his nose and married her a year ago. He thought that he could use her family's connections to get some benefits. Never did he expect that the one who married him would be a tigress. Zhu Jifa's life had been tough for the past year. He needed a gentle and considerate girl to barely save his collapsing life. "Alright, it's good that you know about this. If Lu Xiaohong comes to ask you about it, help me lay the groundwork." As Zhu Jifa spoke, he took out his wallet and shook out a stack of red notes. It looked to be about 2,000 to 3,000 yuan. He stuffed it into Qin Guang's hands. "Here, take the hush money." Qin Guang slapped the money back. If it was him in the past, he would have accepted it without a second thought. But now he really couldn't afford to lose face like this. He thought to himself that he might as well find an opportunity to show off his wealth in front of this guy. That way this guy wouldn't think of him as a pauper. He would let this guy understand that a scholar who has been away for 3 days should be looked at in a new light. As the two of them were pushing and shoving each other, Hu Ling came back. "What are you two doing?" The two of them finally stopped. Zhu Jifa hurriedly explained, "Nothing, nothing." Hu Ling had been with Zhu Jifa for a long time. When she saw his expression, how could she not understand what was going on? She blushed and pinched Zhu Jifa's hand under the table. Qin Guang looked at the two of them being so lovey-dovey. How dare they show off their affection in front of me? I can call a girl to beat the crap out of you. Fortunately, the dishes on the table were gradually served. Zhu Jifa was the first to pick up his chopsticks. Let's eat, let's eat. Go back to school early after you're done eating. I have a tough battle to fight tomorrow." Qin Guang picked up some food with his chopsticks. Even though this restaurant did not look grand, the food was quite authentic. "Oh right, Hu Ling, do you know how to drive?" Hu Ling was puzzled. "Yes, why?" Qin Guang was amused. "Alright then. You can drive the Rena back this time. I don't need it." Chapter 333. Zhu Jifa threw away his chopsticks and asked, "Although I told you to stop driving, you're not used to not having a car, right? Just take it and drive, it's not a problem." Qin Guang chuckled, "No, I'm going to buy my own car. The Rena doesn't feel good when it's running, and it's terrible when it accelerates." "Screw you, why are you complaining when you can drive it? I told you to come back and get a miting, but you said you didn't want it." Zhu Jifa's phone rang as he was speaking. "I'm going to take this call." In less than 2 minutes, he walked back with a bitter face, looking at the table full of dishes that had just been served regretfully. "What's wrong?" Qin Guang saw that his expression was not right. Zhu Jifa sighed, "The battle is ahead of schedule. Forget it, let's go somewhere else." The table full of dishes had not been touched. Everything happened so suddenly, so the three of them could only look at it regretfully before they left. It was a feast for their eyes. Because of that phone call, Zhu Jifa's mood suddenly became very complicated. Even when he was driving, he was a little distracted. If it wasn't for Qin Guang pulling the handbrake for him, this guy would have rear-ended someone. Left with no other choice, Qin Guang forcefully chased Zhu Jifa out of the driver's seat and took over the driver's seat. Qin Guang repeatedly expressed that he had been in the 5 capitals for half a year, and he's already an experienced driver. Only then did Zhu Jifa reluctantly give up his seat. However, as soon as he sat in the front passenger seat, his entire person was in the zone. His eyebrows were furrowed like a wet towel. "What's making you so worried? Tell me and see if I can help you think of a way." Qin Guang asked him, but he didn't answer. Hu Linggang called another expensive restaurant in Wujing City's Hailing Pavilion to change the time of a private room, and then mentioned it to Qin Guang. She said, "I originally had an appointment with someone at Hailing Pavilion to discuss something tomorrow, but they said they had another appointment tomorrow and asked me to change it to today. Originally, I planned to find out what that person likes and dislikes tomorrow morning, but now that I've been caught unprepared, Brother Fa is worried about whether or not we can settle the matter." Zhu Jifa, who was in front, finally said, "It's okay. I don't have time to ask about other people's preferences. At most, I'll just give them money. Everyone likes money. Don't worry about Qin Guang later. Just focus on eating. You're going to graduate soon, so you should learn how to do business. Today is just the right time for you to see how I talk business." Qin Guang nodded and thought to himself, "I don't know anything about business now, but I already have 200 million in my pocket, okay?" It was about 4 or 5 kilometers from the hotel chain to the Hailing Pavilion, but there was a bit of a traffic jam. The 3 of them drove for about 40 minutes before they arrived. Originally, Zhu Jifa had booked a private room for tomorrow. Now that it was changed to today, there was almost no space left. He had no choice but to add another 5,000 yuan to the private room fee. In the end, the 3 of them sat in the private room for an hour. It was almost 8 o'clock and their stomachs were growling with hunger. Only then did the person they had been waiting for finally arrive, saying that he had already arrived downstairs. The wait was too boring, so Qin Guang had to force Zhu Jifa to talk about it. Only then did he know why he had come to the 5 capital painting. Recently, the business of his family's printing factory had been quite good. They had received a lot of orders and the current production line was too busy. Therefore, Zhu Jifa planned to create a production line with new technology. It could also be considered as making the business bigger and bigger. Unfortunately, if he wanted to achieve everything in one step, the production line with new technology that he had his eyes on was not cheap. He had to prepare at least tens of millions of yuan in total. It was not enough to rely on the circulating funds of the factory alone, so he thought of taking a loan. The last time he had asked someone to send Qin Guang's parents to the 5 capital painting, he had actually gone there in advance to get a feel of the situation. After all, he knew that now that the country was collecting loans, it was not as easy for private enterprises to get loans as it used to be. Last week, he had finally found the way to Dongchong Commercial Bank through an acquaintance. As the boss of the enterprise, he had hurriedly rushed over, planning to invite the president of the branch to have a meal together. At the dinner table, he would state the situation that needed to be shown, give the benefits that needed to be given, and settle the matter while he was at it. He had originally planned to make preparations with the acquaintance that he wanted to build a relationship with the next day, catered to their preferences, and prepared some valuable and high-class gifts. In the end, he did not expect the other party to do as he pleased, suddenly changing the date to today. At this time the acquaintance could not come and he had not prepared anything, so Zhu Jifa could only bite the bullet and do it himself. He did not know what this person had been doing before. This last-minute change of time, and he himself had arrived late, made Zhu Jifa, Qin Guang and the other 2 extremely hungry. Qin Guang's face was sullen. He had not even entered the business world, and he had already suffered in the business world with Zhu Jifa. Qin Guang really could not hold it in. Isn't this person too unreasonable? It's fine if he changed the time, but he only arrived now. What did he say just now? 3 cars came? A dish in this lousy place would cost at least a few hundred. 3 cars for a dozen people, a meal would cost at least 10 to 20,000, and it would be even worse if they drank some wine. Does he think you're a sucker? Zhu Jifa sighed. Qin Guang, you've seen it, haven't you? Business is not easy, it's really not easy. Just like today, since he changed the time at the last minute, it means that he is actually not sincere. But I can only hope that he will make one last attempt, don't you think so? Later on you better restrain yourself and don't care about anything else. Just keep your head down and eat your food. Don't spoil my plans. Qin Guang saw his nervous look. Although he did not take it seriously, he did not directly refute him. Seeing that he was very concerned about this matter, he was not in a hurry to show off his money. At the same time, he could also learn how to deal with people in this so-called business world. At this moment, Zhu Jifa's phone rang. The other party said that they had already arrived at the entrance of Hailing Pavilion and asked him to go down and pick them up. Following that, Qin Guang finally saw the true difficulty of doing business. Zhu Jifa and Hu Ling eagerly went out to pick them up. He sat down obediently and waited for the food to be served. Just as Zhu Jifa said, Qin Guang only planned to eat this meal with his stomach and ears. He only wanted to listen and eat and did not care about anything else. In the end, Hu Ling came in with a red face. The atmosphere was a little off. Qin Guang wanted to ask what was wrong, but a group of people followed behind a fat man came in. Before the words left his mouth, he swallowed them first. Zhu Jifa was the last one. He looked like he was forcing a smile. There was some anger between his eyebrows, but he suppressed it. When the people in front of him turned around and greeted him, his face instantly turned into a humble and respectful smile. After entering the door and sitting down, Zhu Jifa first mentioned that Qin Guang was his younger brother. The fat man was President Ma of Dongchong Commercial Bank's Chaosian County branch. President Ma was not interested in Qin Guang at all. He did not even greet Qin Guang. He only waved his hand and signaled the 10 people behind him to sit down. Then he sat down on the main seat. Zhu Jifa and Hu Ling actually rushed to Qin Guang's side. Qin Guang felt that the atmosphere was not right. Chapter 334. All of a sudden there were so many people and they seemed to be President Ma's subordinates. Zhu Jifa didn't even have the chance to open his mouth on the table. Logically speaking, if he really wanted to talk, it wasn't impossible with so many people. President Ma just needed to give a signal, and Zhu Jifa would immediately follow him outside to talk. However, after the dishes were served, President Ma and his group were very lively. On the contrary, Zhu Jifa, who was the host today, couldn't integrate into the atmosphere of this group of people. This feeling was very strange. Zhu Jifa clearly wanted to talk to President Ma, so he booked a private room in this expensive Hailing Pavilion. In the end, President Ma didn't stand on ceremony. He pulled out a bunch of his subordinates, and the table became a lively gathering of his trusted subordinates. Zhu Jifa didn't even have the chance to talk. Zhu Jifa couldn't integrate, and President Ma didn't have the mood to care about his emotions. He sent a young man to sit beside Zhu Jifa and pull him to drink. Zhu Jifa stood up to propose a toast, so the other party impatiently squeezed out a smile that was not a smile. It could be said that he had gone overboard. On the other hand, Zhu Jifa drank one cup after another. Less than 5 minutes into the meal, Qin Guang understood that there were some things that couldn't be said. After all, Brother Fa had been treated as a spendthrift today. This meal for more than 10 people, and they drank cup after cup of Maotai, at least 30 to 40,000 yuan was gone. The other party's large group chatted incessantly. Zhu Jifa, Hu Ling and Qin Guang, who were originally the hosts, became completely dispensable on the scene. They just needed to pay and their faces were full of awkwardness. Qin Guang had probably heard of similar situations. Nowadays the country was calling for clean government and simplicity. Eating and drinking at public expense couldn't be messed around. However, this meal had to be eaten and he couldn't pay for it himself. What should he do? When he was greedy, or when he wanted to host some big receptions, he would find some local business bosses who had something to ask of him. They said that they would introduce you to them and help you pull some strings. In fact, they just wanted you to bring a bag of money. But if someone else were to do this, they would at least be meeting a big shot. If they let you fork out the money, it would really be a success. President Ma's table manners were exceptionally ugly. You're a leader who's treating your subordinate to a meal, yet you're tricking him into paying for it. Yet, you're not showing any sincerity or attitude when discussing matters. What the hell is this? He didn't even give them any face. Zhu Jifa poured glass after glass of wine into the young man's mouth. The young man seemed to be a wine jar. He was also suffering, but he still forced a smile. Qin Guang was furious. He had finally experienced the difficulties of this business today. Only Zhu Jifa could endure it. If it were him, he would definitely not be able to endure it. Although he was unhappy, he was not the one in charge today. Zhu Jifa could still hold it in, and Qin Guang naturally could not stand up for him, nor was he in a position to do so. Finding an opportunity, Qin Guang turned his head and asked Hu Ling next to him, "You didn't look right when I came in. What's wrong?" Hu Ling shook her head in a slightly flustered manner. "No, nothing. Qin Guang, you're good. Don't worry about this." Qin Guang raised his eyebrows. "Did that damn fatty take advantage of you?" Hu Ling's face stiffened. She looked at Qin Guang again and thought about the relationship between the two brothers. Finally, she leaned over to Qin Guang's ear and whispered, "It's okay. Your brother has a favor to ask now. I can bear with this little loss. It's nothing if I can get it done." "What's wrong?" Qin Guang suppressed his anger. Hu Ling whispered, "When I first came up, President Ma slapped my butt. Don't do anything rash." "The scumbag." Qin Guang's face instantly darkened. Hu Ling was shocked by him and quickly pressed down on his leg. "Don't be rash. Don't cause trouble for your brother. I've already endured it. Don't ask about this. Just eat your food." After taking a few deep breaths, Qin Guang grinned at President Ma, who was looking at him curiously. He then turned his face to Hu Ling and said with a fake smile, "Fine. It's your business anyway. Anyway, I can't be a businessman. I'm not learning." He really couldn't do it. If doing business required him to suffer like this, he really couldn't do it. Even though Zhu Jifa was dealing with a small printing factory and only wanted to borrow tens of thousands of yuan, he was only facing the president of a county-level branch of a commercial bank. With 200 million yuan in his hands, he might not need to be afraid of someone like President Ma when he entered the business world. However, there would definitely be bigger people waiting for him to curry favor with them. "I can't do this business. Anyway, I can't stand this." Qin Guang fiercely picked up a piece of Dongpo pork knuckle and stuffed it into his mouth. This time he didn't even want to wear his ears. After 3 rounds of drinking, Zhu Jifa finally couldn't hold it in anymore. At this moment, President Ma seemed to have drunk enough. He got up and said that he needed to go to the toilet. Zhu Jifa quickly followed him, thinking that this was an opportunity for him to talk. Seeing him like this, Qin Guang's heart was pounding. It was hard to be a human being, but it was even harder to be a businessman. He understood Zhu Jifa's character. Zhu Jifa was a hot-tempered person like him in the past, but now he had become like this. Perhaps he really needed money badly. It was not easy to find a relationship with President Ma. Even if the situation looked so bad now, he refused to give up this opportunity easily. After a while, the two of them returned. President Ma walked unsteadily in front while Zhu Jifa looked helpless behind the door. "President Ma, can we talk about this again?" President Ma, who was pushing the door open, suddenly stopped in his tracks. He narrowed his eyes and looked at Zhu Jifa coldly. "Xiao Zhu, we can talk about this later. Let's talk about it another day. Everyone is having a good time today, so let's not talk about business." Zhu Jifa's face stiffened. He was already cursing in his heart. "I was only inviting you alone, but you brought more than 10 people and cost me tens of thousands. Now you are telling me that we are not going to talk about business? Why did I invite you here if we are not going to talk about business?" But he forced a smile on his face. "That's right. Eat well and drink well. Let's talk about it another day." When the two of them entered, everyone on the table stopped their cups and looked at them. Qin Guang had also heard their conversation and wanted to slam the table as well. However, when he saw that Zhu Jifa had endured it, he felt that even if he had to endure it, he would continue to endure it. The two of them finally sat down. President Ma, who said he didn't want to talk about business, finally spoke again. He didn't try to hide anything. He said directly, "Xiao Zhu, I actually understand your situation very well. But the printing factory is not a new industry. It is not wrong to say that it is a sunset industry. Now the country does not have any plans to support it. In the first half of this year, our branch's business is also doing well. The loan quota is almost used up. This matter of yours is difficult to handle." She didn't expect him to say it out loud in front of so many people. His meaning was obvious. "I want to eat and drink for free, what can you do about it?" Chapter 335. Zhu Jifa panicked and stood up. "President Ma, this?" President Ma impatiently pressed his hand down. "Xiao Zhu, don't be anxious. I'll think of something later. Everything will go according to the proper procedures. As long as your company meets the lending standards, it's not impossible to talk about it." "All right, didn't I just say that we shouldn't talk about business at the table? Let's eat first." What he meant was that this meal was not enough and he had to continue eating another day. Zhu Jifa was furious, but President Ma was his last hope. It was all his fault. He wanted to eat until he was fat, so he rushed out a lot of orders. Now he could not get a loan, could not get a new line, and could not complete it on time. If he lost money, he might even go bankrupt. If he took a step back and got a set of outdated and cheap equipment, it would cost at least a few million. On the other hand, it would be obsolete sooner or later. It would be a waste of money, and the production task might not be completed on time. Even if this matter could be settled through the proper procedures, it would still be dragged on by this man with the surname Ma. After wasting a few months, the factory would still be finished. Now he really could not do anything about this man with the surname Ma. There was no other way. After sitting down again, the young man next to Zhu Jifa continued to pull him to drink. This time, the young man was finally willing to reveal his identity. He moved closer to Zhu Jifa and whispered. It turned out that this guy was President Ma's nephew. He gestured for Zhu Jifa to go outside to talk with him. Zhu Jifa had been ignored for the whole meal. Seeing that he finally had a chance to talk, he hurriedly followed. Even if he was just a nephew sent by President Ma, it was convenient for him to talk about things that were not convenient for outsiders to hear. Chen Guang first looked at the fat President Ma, who was still happily bragging. He then looked at Zhu Jifa, who was excitedly following him out. Chen Guang frowned slightly. It was already such a lousy situation. That man with the surname Ma obviously did not want to do anything. Zhu Jifa was too anxious and blinded by lard. Maybe this guy asked Zhu Jifa to go out to take advantage of his anxiousness to ruthlessly cut him off first. Chen Guang said to Hu Ling that he was going to the toilet too and followed them out. He felt that he had learned Zhu Jifa's way of doing business. It was embarrassing for him to kneel down and beg others to do business. Anyway, he couldn't do it. Wasn't it just 10 million? I have 183 million in my UBS account that I have nowhere to spend. How could he watch Zhu Jifa, who wasn't even his biological brother, suffer like this? Even if touching this money would step on Lioli's tail, he couldn't ignore it. Although Lioli was rude and unreasonable, she still had to be reasonable. When Chen Guang followed Zhu Jifa outside, he wasn't in a rush to argue with Zhu Jifa. Instead, he hid in a corner and listened to what the two had to say. Although it would feel good to flip the table in front of everyone, there's no need to offend them. Chen Guang was someone who had no desires, but he wasn't representing himself at this moment. Since he was sitting here with Zhu Jifa, he was also representing his factory. Two people's whispers came from the other corner of the wall. As expected, that was what that guy was planning. The young man's tone indicated that the matter was difficult, but not impossible. Mr. Zhu, it's not that my uncle doesn't want to help you, but the current national policy is the same. It's not easy. Zhu Jifa nodded bitterly. I know it's not easy, so I asked Brother Deng to contact President Ma. I don't dare to say anything else, but although the printing factory is a sunset industry, I have a lot of orders. As long as I can get a loan, I promise I won't let the loan go bad. The young man moved his face closer. Mr. Zhu, I understand what you're saying, but my uncle has his difficulties too. Zhu Jifa grunted in response. He was extremely impatient, but he also understood why Bank Manager Ma kept his nephew by his side. If Bank Manager Ma has any difficulties, why don't you tell me? As long as I, Zhu Jifa, can help, I won't hesitate. The young man smiled and suddenly said mysteriously, my uncle is quite fond of jade artifacts. After saying that, he did not say anything else. Zhu Jifa was in a dilemma. Difficulties my *SS. I thought you're good at it, but you're still the same. It was not popular to give money directly. After all, money, no matter if it was transferred to an account or changed into cash and hidden somewhere, would eventually be exposed. Jade, calligraphy, and paintings were stylish and valuable, and could be exchanged for cash. Actually, Zhu Jifa would rather the other party ask for money. Jade was more troublesome. No matter how much money he asked for, it would not be more than 100,000. But when it came to jade, how could he take out anything less than 100,000? The other party had already said that he liked jade, so his family must have some treasures. If the quality of the gift was too low, not only would it not please the other party, but it would also offend the other party. The value of the gift could only be figured out by the person asking for help. To be on the safe side, the value had to be estimated high, and the person would rather give more than less. But with Zhu Jifa's net worth, he could still afford tens of thousands. If it exceeded 100,000, it would be a serious problem. Even a factory worth 200,000 would not be able to operate smoothly. Obviously, it was not the first time the young man had done this on behalf of President Ma. He turned around and walked into the private room. Turning the corner, the young man saw Chen Guang, who had the same ugly expression. The young man could guess Chen Guang's mood at the moment. He snorted arrogantly and ignored Chen Guang. Zhu Jifa frowned and turned around. He saw Chen Guang's livid face and squeezed out a smile. He patted him on the shoulder and said softly, I didn't expect it to be so difficult. It's embarrassing. Don't be impulsive and ruin things. If you're really angry, you can go back first. Don't worry, this little setback won't defeat me. Snorting through his nose, Qin Guang continued, Who the hell are these people? Don't tell me you're really going to give that Ma guy hundreds of thousands of jade? Can't you tell? They don't have the attitude to help at all, okay? Zhu Jifa shook his head. They don't want to help because I didn't do my job well. Don't worry, it can be done. *CK. Was there a need to be so humble to please this kind of thing that ate people without spitting out the bones? Aren't you just short of money? How big of a deal is it? I have 10 million. Qin Guang finally said. But Zhu Jifa did not believe him at all. Don't tease me. Okay, if you're angry, don't go in to eat. Walk around outside first. Today's meal is like this. It's all because of this mess. I really have money? Seeing that he did not believe him, Qin Guang said anxiously. Zhu Jifa almost laughed. Okay, I know you're trying to comfort me because you pity me, but this is nothing. How can it be worse than me being bullied by Lu Xiaohong? There are hundreds of people in the factory who depend on me to make a living. This money is really important. If I mess it up, it's all over. If your family collapses, I can't collapse. It's tough, but I can take it. If everything collapses, who can take it if the old man gets sick in the future? You don't know how upset I was when I found out your dad wanted to sell the house. Don't worry, watch me. Take care of him. With that, Zhu Jifa turned and walked into the private room. Qin Guang was so angry that his head was about to explode. Just as he was about to take out his UBS black card to teach this ignorant grandson a lesson, he had already closed the private room door. His meaning was obvious. I'll take the brunt of this and you can stay in your ivory tower and be a university student. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.